Once again, I'm Kenneth Anderson Lukwago. I'll be your moderator today as we focus on this very important issue, looking at the state of Uganda's economy under the theme Prudent Fiscal Management for Effective Public Investment and Attainment of the Tenfold Agenda by 2040. The Tenfold Agenda, this is the new promise that the government of Uganda is making under National Development Plan 4 to grow this economy to $500 billion. And there are a number of issues there, including some key areas of investment, what has been referred to as the ATMs, which includes agro industrialization, tourism, and a number of other things there explained in a fourth national development plan. President Yoweri Museveni spoke about these things in detail during the State of the Nation address, and it's expected that this will form the key pillars of the next budget, and we await the speech on Thursday this week. I would like to encourage all those who are seated at the back, please, if you can kindly move forward so that we can occupy the spaces that are here for purposes of proceeding well, but being able to listen to one another loud and clear for purposes of conducive engagement. So we have a number of issues to deal with looking at our program today. We'll have to begin with welcome remarks from the Executive Director of Siatini, who is already here with us. After that, she will help us to set the pace and also bring out some of the key issues. We'll move into a panel of discussion to break down further the issues that are before us, looking at the state of our economy. And then, of course, we will open up to plenary for to get some more insights from you people to tell us what you think about the next budget, but the economy generally. And then we'll move on as we wait for more people to join us. Probably by then, the people from Ministry of Finance and other key partners will have joined us to continue with this very important meeting. I would like to recognize the key organizers to this particular engagement, Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, Bank of Uganda, Uganda Revenue Authority, a number of civil society organizations who are here, development partners who have all come together to try and promote the national budget through what is known as the budget month, explaining to members of the public what is actually in this budget and how they can partake of it or contribute to its full implementation. Now, without any further ado, it's my pleasure to now invite to the podium the Executive Director, Siatini Uganda, to come and make her opening remarks and kickstart this meeting.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. That's better. First of all, we apologize for starting a bit late. Some people are saying the traffic jam and all that, but we are here and we are going to start our conversation. I would like to welcome all of you, especially those who have traveled from far. We have participants from Masaka, from Kasanda, from Kalangala, across the waters, from Soroti. So we have tried. I don't know whether we have some people from Zombo or Arua. We have tried to bring some people from across the country so that this is not just a Kampala affair, called a budget mass, where there are a number of partners, budget mass partners, like Ministry of Finance, URA, and other civil society organizations. We try to reach out to Ugandans to at least to analyze and tell them about the budget, about the taxes, what the budget is saying, and how they can be able to participate in ensuring that the budget really addresses their challenges. So I would like to thank the budget partners for the support throughout the budget month activities, but also the support towards this dialogue. We are here. In fact, this is the first time we are organizing this activity as part of the budget month, when we are looking at Uganda's economy as part of the budget process. In fact, somebody internally we are discussing whether we put there the state of Uganda's real economy. But we said, okay, let us leave it as the economy. But here, we want to have a conversation, an objective, realistic, candid conversation around our economy. No? And that's why, like I have said, we have invited, because of lack of resources, we haven't brought a number of people from up country, but we have invited some people from up country. We want to look at the real economy as part of the budget process. Because, when you go to see a doctor, the doctor will put some machines on you, removes the blood, takes it to the lab, says, you are saying you have a headache, but maybe you have some worms in the stomach, So that's the diagnosis, So if that diagnosis is not done right, the medicine won't be right. So it's important we look at the state of the economy, look at why are we where we are, and beyond the figures, by the way, beyond the figures, because my sister there from Kasanda, when you tell her, we are going to develop tenfold, she'll say, this is a lot of English. Now, what does that mean? But she's the town clerk. How does she translate that into ensuring that her people in Kasanda have health facilities, the schools are there, the roads are there, So we need to look at that real economy, and we need to be able to break down those figures. The growth rate, 6.7%, and it's going to grow by 7%, isn't it, in the next 5 years? Talk about inflation is under control. What does that mean? They talk about IMF, World Bank are telling us we are the 7th fastest growing economy. What does that mean? So we need to see how we can be able to translate economic growth into improved livelihoods, isn't it? Into improved livelihoods, into better access to social services, to health and education. Those of you who remember Animal Farm, when who was talking about the figures? Was it Squirrel? Please read. Let us read those books. Very interesting, but so many lessons to learn. Squirrel was there putting out figures, and one of the animals said if they can reduce on the figures but increase the food in the buckets, maybe it would be better. So for that animal, the issue wasn't the figures, but it was the food in the bucket. So we need to look at how we can be able to translate all these figures into improved livelihoods. There are challenges facing our country. Some of them are internal, but some of them are external and general to other countries. We are facing a polycrisis. A polycrisis is where one crisis is feeding into another. Climate change, the global trade wars, US, China, tariffs are increased. We need to understand, how do we position ourselves within that external context? Because when giants fight, what suffers? The grass, isn't it? Yeah. But even when they make love, the grass suffers. So we need to be able to see how we navigate those trade wars when the giants are fighting. But there are also internal challenges which we need to be conversant about and which we need to accept that they are there. The issue of indebtedness, we are indebted. Whether we want it or not, we are indebted, And our budget, we are fine. It's a debt financed budget, Even if people are celebrating World Bank is back, it's back because they are going to give us maybe some concessional loans. But again, they are loans. So how do we break that cycle of loans? How do we get out of that trap? When you look at the budget, the proposed budget, and the debt servicing burden, it's a challenge which we need to address realistically. ODA is going down. We are running a trade deficit. This is also a reality because we are exporting commodities, gold, coffee, cocoa beans, but we are importing value-added products and the trade deficit is high. How do we address that? So there are challenges on table which we need to address, but we need also to recognize government's efforts. Their government is not seated, government is working. Government has put in place public investment management reforms, which we need to look at. Are they okay? Are they adequate? Are they being implemented? Government has also put in place the tax expenditure governance framework to be able to rationalize the issue of incentives. And there are so many other efforts government has put in place, ranging from even PDM and other programs to reach the people, and we are happy that government is doing that. But we also need to interrogate those efforts. Are they being implemented? Are they fit for purpose or not? We need to look at the strategy for the tenfold strategy, ATMS, agriculture, agro-industrialization, tourism, mineral development, science, technology, and innovation. We agree those are the drivers. But what about the enablers? Let me explain that concept. It's like if you want to drive to Masaka, you say, I'm going to use a car. That's a car, that's the vehicle. But you need to put there fuel. You need to service the engine. You need to put there tires. Those are the enablers. So do we have the enablers in place to make sure that these drivers drive the economy? I will just give you an example. We have been working, or we are working in Amuru, Guru, Eregu area on standards of maize. But I'm telling you, things are not good. They are not good because you can't trade without standards. And we have seen our products being brought back because of lack of standards. But the capacity of our farmers to comply to standards is very low. So we are able to put in place a few bylaws, but the people need to be educated, trained on how to comply to those bylaws, So those are the enablers. That agro-industrialization is a driver, but we need standards to be put in place. We need also to look at the priorities. If we say we are moving tenfold, what are the priorities? Where should we put our little resources? Because the resources are not enough. The budget is limited. Are those priorities the right priorities where we are spending our money? I want to go into that, but let us look at where we are spending our resources. Is it the right resource? That's where we should be putting our money. There are things which I personally look at and say, is this okay? Should we go into AI and electric vehicles when women are still using a hoe to produce? Does that balance or not? In my village, I do some farming, but getting a tractor is very difficult. I'm still using a hoe, but we are talking about a killer electric vehicle to send them somewhere. So, and this is a personal opinion, and I'm asking myself, does it make sense or not? The issue of decentralization in the president's SONA, it wasn't addressed, but decentralization was put in place to take services nearer to the people. And we have called people from the districts. Are the services there? Are they nearer to the people? This conversation, it's a lot of English about prudent fiscal management for effective public investment and attainment of the tenfold agenda. For, a lot of English. I was talking to somebody whom I were invited from up country. She was saying, but is that supposed to be for us? Those things, prudent fiscal management. I said, yes, it's for you, and we are going to break it down for you. So I want to end my short remarks by remembering the words of President Mkapa. Mkapa, you remember, was the president of Tanzania. He passed on. And there were some negotiations. We are negotiating as East African community. We are negotiating with the European Union. The European Union was pushing us to sign that agreement. And the president said that, whatever you do, if you want to sign, go ahead and sign that agreement. But you need to ask yourself a few questions. Whether that agreement will encourage diversification of your economy. Look at Uganda. Although in SONA, the president is saying we have 10 products which we have put on the market. But when you look at the exports, it's cocoa, beans, coffee, gold, the top. The rest are almost not there. So what I want us to do, that whatever policies, whatever strategy, whatever action, whatever budget item, we need to ask ourselves, will it help us to diversify our economy so that we are not sending just raw commodities, but value-added products? We are industrializing and creating decent jobs for the young people. Will it help us to increase food security? Because that's really important, having our own food. In fact, today we have graduated from talking about food security to food sovereignty. Will it allow us to grow our own food and control our food system? Will it help us to provide quality employment for our people? Most often we talk about jobs, employment, but is that employment decent and quality employment? So these are just indicators. It's we used to call it in school a litmus test, for whatever we are going to do. But I would like to thank you so much, and I encourage us to have just a conversation. Honest, objective. We are not campaigning, by the way. We made it very clear that we are not going to invite politicians. But if you are here, you are a politician, you leave the politician's hat outside, because we are not campaigning. We are having an honest conversation, and this conversation is going to feed into the budget. Where should we put our money so that we can be able to move a step further? So thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Madam Jane Nalunga, for your opening remarks. I think she has done her best to give us the pace that we are looking for. She scratched here and there, pointing out some of the gaps, some of the things that we need to actually follow up. But also her comments also bring forth a number of questions that we need to contend with as citizens who are supposed to be the ultimate beneficiaries of this particular budget. A number of things from the onset, when you look at the government plan, the ATMs, like she has said, very nice, but when you do some analysis, you look at the allocation of funds, what they planned actually to put there is not what is being reflected in the national budget. And you wonder whether we'll be able to take off, because there are some people who will tell you even the third national development plan was good, but what did we get out of it? So are we likely to realize any fruits from this particular budget? So we have a panel to discuss further some of the issues connected to what she has pointed out, but also to share their perspectives about this particular budget. So I will invite the panelists to step forward so that we can have that conversation and dig deeper on some of the issues that are already in this particular budget. Let me introduce the panelists. I'll begin with Ms. Maureen Wagube. She's from the Institute for Social Transformation. As they come forward, please you give them a round of applause so that we can encourage them to step forward. Let me also introduce Mr. Daniel Lukwago, my namesake from the World Bank. Kindly, if you can step forward to the podium. We also have Mr. Elo Stephen. He's from the Foreign Commonwealth Development Office. A round of applause for Stephen. We also have Mr. Aloysius Chitengo from Siatini, Uganda, who is going to represent the voices of the civil society. It's a pleasure having you on the panel. We are also being joined by Mr. Suleiman Chigundu, Director of the Parliamentary Budget Office. Please give him a round of applause as he comes forward to join this panel. All right, let's kickstart this discussion, and I'm going to allow you to share your sentiments about the budget before we go to the particular questions that were designed for you to actually respond to. And I want to begin by picking your thoughts about this particular budget. And let's do ladies first, and I'll go to Maureen first. Very quickly, your thoughts about the budgeting process and where we are right now.
Thank you very much, moderator. Yes, yes. For me, first of all, is to appreciate our government for taking us through these processes, because we cannot operate without our, our effective processes of budgeting. And we really appreciate that at least we have a working budget, despite the gaps that are within. But we believe that this is something that we can work on together and it is a call for all of us because we are all stakeholders when it comes to budgeting. We have a role to play. So the whole perspective from my end is, what is your role? What is your contribution? When we are talking about that 50% of our budget is being, it's a loan. We have to get loans to fund our budget. What does it mean to you? And where do we have to, to touch base so that we can organize ourselves for better? And for me, I believe that this is an opening for all of us, but also a position where we say, okay, this is the reality. But what is my role? What is my role? Not for us to bullet government all the time, but what is my role? Yeah, so that is my summary.
All right, thank you so much for your thoughts there. Let's go to Mr. Daniel Lukwago from the World Bank.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Siatin, and the members for organizing this forum. Just to make correction, I'm here as Lukwago Daniel, not World Bank. So although I do some work there, but I don't speak, and I'm not speaking for World Bank. So don't quote me as
Noted.
World Bank said.
Okay.
But this is my personal views. And from the experience I've had on this work, on a budget work, when we started this engagement, civil society engaging in the budget work, I think there has been tremendous changes and improvements on the way civil society and the people participate in the budget over time, because when we started this work, it was quite difficult. But now I think finance is more embracive of the civil society and able to engage in allocating money, which is very good. The only challenge you find, our budget is the most open budget, I think, in the region and also in the world, but also the most opaque budget in the world. What you see on allocation is not what happens in reality. So the allocation looks very rosy. The word in the budget uses the word rosy. It's a rosy budget. It looks 72 trillion, of which 60% is debt. So the remaining 40 is for you to allocate. But if you remove the big spenders, nothing remains. So you allocate very well, but in terms of spending, it's really, if you took time to analyze, you'll cry. I was just looking at the budget performance up to the end of half year, December this year, this financial year. When I looked at the figures, I said, out of the 30 trillion government spent, 20 trillion was on debt payment. Only 10 remained, of which a big percentage went on governance and security budget. So what remained is very, very small, not more than 7 trillion. I don't think that can make significant change in their lives. I think for me, the discussion now for government and those partners, let's move away from this allocation. Let's move to the side of spending. Where is the money spent? Is it spent on little things which can drive to that 10 goal strategy, or it's just business as usual? And I don't see any significant change going to happen this year's budget, the next coming budget. I don't see any significant change. It's going to remain the same. So participation is there in allocation, but spending, there is no participation. I don't think one of you can go and ask any public official how much they are spending, and they will give you that figure. They will never give it to you. So that ends the entire budget process, participation being very open, but extremely opaque when it comes to spending. That's where my point is. I don't care so much about what you allocate, but opaqueness of what is spent on is where the challenge we have to address as we work to improve this budget process. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Let's hear from Stephen, who's from the Foreign Commonwealth Development Office. Your quick thoughts on the budgeting process and the things that come to your mind.
Thank you so much, Siatini, and and all of you for coming. My thoughts on the budget. One, just like Daniel said, the budget has continuously been so transparent. The process has been transparent. I think also for this year's budget, it was approved. There was not so much corrigenda in the last minute. So at least not like the previous budget where a week before the approval of the budget, Parliament comes up with another figure and they approve last minute, which doesn't give time for people to scrutinize. This budget also comes at a critical time, is that would have approved NDP4. And this is the first, next year will be the first financial year of implementation of NDP4. So really this budget is very critical to start on a good footing. If you're aware, is that NDP3 has not really achieved much. According to the midterm review, we were less than 40%, around 35, thereabout. So, and I think this calls on the partners. This kind of discussions we should be having. If you look at the beginning of the year and now, there has been a lot of change in the development space. The traditional donors have pulled out, money has reduced, there's no more money coming from the development partners. So this is the time. I'm glad that government is looking at resource mobilization domestically. And we are seeing it increasing in the budget, that now we want to collect more money through URA and through the different spaces. But what should we do so that we collect internally? Just like Daniel is saying, much of the money is going into debt. But how do we improve that we reduce on the debt and increase our local? So I think this budget is very critical, and this kind of discussions we are having needs to continue. We need to see how best can we now shape the discussions locally, away from the usual dependence on donors and development partners. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephen. Now we'll hear from Mr. Chigundu Suleiman, your perspective about the budgeting process. You sit in Parliament where these processes take place. What is your take about the entire process and where we stand now?
Thank you very much. As far as our Parliament is concerned, we have done our role. The Minister of Finance presented the budget documents, beginning from the budget framework paper. Parliament did the scrutiny of the budget framework paper from January, the whole of January. Then it made recommendations. Recommendations were referred to the Minister of Finance for integration to the budget. We did receive the policy statements. We did the usual process of going through the sectors and the policy statements. We introduced tax bills, finance bills that led to the budget. Parliament went through to scrutinize all the tax bills, and all of them were passed, some with amendments as passed. And then they brought the budget estimates. Again, the Parliament sat and discussed all the various items in the budget and approved the budget well before time, because the budget timelines are well known in the law. So by 31st May, it has to be passed. So for us, we passed it around 14th, 15th. So we did our work. Now what it means is the execution, which is an executive function. As far as we are concerned, Parliament, we have done our role of passing the budget. Now the mantle is for the executors of the budget to see how the resources are going. Thank you.
We hope you'll also be playing your other role of oversight and ensuring that this budget actually delivers.
Yes.
All right. Now, let's get deeper into the discussions. And I want to begin with Mr. Daniel Lukwago. You raised a very important issue about the amounts of money that are allocated and how the budget performs at the end of it all. Now, recently, there was this launch of the public investment management system, and the promise is that that effort is going to help us streamline how money is spent, delivery of projects on time, etc., which are some of the issues that you reflected on in your initial submission. First of all, what's your take about this new public investment management system, but how do we also leverage it to be able to achieve fiscal consolidation?
Understand? I think there have been efforts to improve public investment management. I think reforms starting in 2016 and government putting in place 60 Ministry of Finance reforms to improve public investment management. And we made some bit of progress in terms of project approvals, because now there is a development committee in Ministry of Finance where they approve projects through and to be included in a public investment plan, which is updated annually. The process looks okay, and probably the systems are there, and on paper we are really doing very well. And some changes happened. The only challenge we have as a country is around our usual problem is implementation. Because up to, I think, Rota General also mentioned it in the last audit report, that some projects are still not going through the public investment plan. And some of them are not even a part of the national development plan. You know them, I won't mention them because those are very known. And they take a lot of money. So they defeat the other process of approval projects through the development committee. Other projects bypass the window, which we call opportunity projects. The project just jumps in and says needs money. And because the projects are supposed to be budgeted through a multi-year plan over time, maybe 5 years, 4 years. Now this project which comes in from nowhere distorts the entire process. And that's why we are having a problem. Those projects, you know them, they are the most also opaque projects. You know, you know, they take a lot of money and they are not in the plan. That's why we have a problem with public investment management, where we need to put systems which can ensure that every project is there. But also budgeting for these projects is a big challenge, because some projects don't have multi-year budgets. They have budget for 1 year. They don't have budget for entire year. Most of the projects in the public investment plan are externally funded projects. So they have counterpart funding required in the budget. So if you don't put that counterpart funding in the budget, the project will have challenges going forward. You have seen last month when I think it was I saw in papers saying that all the projects had stalled road construction. The government required over 2 trillion. One of them is where I stay in Chira. The project is stalled. We are just souring our dust. But that project was there in the plan. So what happened? What happened? I mean, middle there, project stores. So many projects have stored. And I think last week, or 2 weeks ago, government borrowed another 2.5 trillion to fund those projects. We are waiting to see whether that will happen. So you see the challenge of, yes, the systems are there, but actualization of these systems is the challenge. I don't want to give examples of other countries because I've had a chance, and I encourage all of you, without bias, visit a country called Rwanda. Without bias. I had my own bias, by the way. I said they are just places that take a country. When I went there, I was extremely shocked. Shocked. The level of organization, the level of how things are done. You move from Uganda, up to Kigali. There is no pothole. They are all lit. There is no dust. There is no spill of this. You know, find out which has spill of one away from soil. The place is well. The lights, the cameras are there. They warn you there is a camera. So the speed limit is maintained. There is no fooling around. And I never got any because I was driving, but I never got any permit because the speeds are all properly lit, and so there is no confusion. But the level of organization of that small country is unbearable. We go to the town, the city itself, there is no disorder at all. I never saw any person with border without a helmet. I never saw a person with 2 border on one board. No way. Even in the deficit village, there is no way you will do it. Ask them, how do you implement this? plan, this enforcement. They said it's very easy. The association of those borders, the one who do the work, it's not the government. You default, they will default you, and you know the law is just blank. No one knows you, so you will pay for your sins. But if we can get that kind of behavior in Uganda, we can move, because these projects are all stalling, partly because of lack of counterpart funding, but also other procurement and other related projects related challenges around the compensation, around getting rid of way. I had a chance, also observe, there's a road there called Matugachira, Matugakasanga. That road was commissioned by the president, the election before the 2016, I think. What shocked me before COVID, so many buildings were erected during that COVID time on the road reserve. Many. Now I saw the government compensating the same fellows who built when actually the road had been commissioned. So it increases the government compensation. And these guys were approved by the municipality or whatever local authority. And no one from the central government went to say, why are you approving this plan when you know this road has already been demarcated for construction? Now, the compensation is so expensive. So you spend a lot of money compensating people who actually should have not built there if government already cleared the way. But of course, some people will use the other things. And so that kind of behavior makes life very hard. And of course, as I conclude on the same problem with the public investment management, as I mentioned, most of the infrastructure is funded by the development partners, including the World Bank and others. One of the challenges you see is the low absorption of externally funded funds. I think we stand at around 35% of absorption of the money we borrow. That is extremely low for the country to develop. And I want us to get examples from, some people, people blame also donors for failing countries, but countries fail themselves. Because when you go, why does East Asia countries perform better than African countries in terms of project implementation? What is the magic? Something wrong is happening in our system that probably we need to improve on the way we do things more efficiently, because why should a project take 5 years? Just an example of the Greater Kampala Metropolitan Project, this one which is making the roads you see here nowadays. That project was approved by World Bank Board in 2020. Implementation started in 2025. So all those 3 years, what was happening? That's a question I leave to those in power.
So in a nutshell,
the 3 years are lost for doing what? And when a project is approved, by the way, it's the commitment starts. You start to pay commitment fees. There is a project which people don't know, by the way. Go to African Development Bank. Check on the website. There's a project called Ginger Express Highway. Was approved in 2018 by African Development Bank at $400 something million. Up to now, nothing has happened. They're supposed to be completed in 2022. Now in 2025, there is nothing. At least the first phase. The phase from here, Spear Motors up to Namagunga, supposed to be approved by now, should have been completed. Nothing has happened. But when you check on the African Development Bank website, can't check. This is not getting information. Can't check. The project is there. You'll see how much you have been paying on commitment fees. And there's nothing. So whom would you blame in that situation? And other challenges I'm talking about public money, having a good system with so many files you process and you cannot execute. That's where we have a huge challenge which you need to address as a country if we are going to achieve this or whatever strategy. With those kind of inefficiencies, we won't even move a single step. Because we've already paid a lot of money on that project, it has not taken off. And now we're starting the SGR. I'm waiting to see.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. Let me come to you, Stephen. one would say that PIMS, what Daniel has just been talking about, is one of the public financial management reforms that have occurred, trying to introduce something that would ensure that there is compliance and delivery of projects on time. But he seems to cast doubt on its implementation and the fruits that we anticipate. I would like to hear from you. What do you think would be the role of public finance management reforms in sustaining economic growth or implementation of a budget?
Yeah, so thank you so much. Just like Daniel said, we have very good policies. I'll give an example of the PFM Act, Public Finance Management Act. It has been amended, so now it's kind of take care of some of the loopholes that Daniel has highlighted. But also, there are still loopholes that comes in. The act stipulates that a project will go through the approval process. It enters into the system. It's budgeted for from a medium-term rate, maybe 5 years, depending on the duration of the project. And the money is supposed to be allocated for it every other year, including the commitments that we are doing. But just like Daniel said, it has not been coming to place. There's a new draft of the PFM reform strategy, which is trying to identify some of these loopholes and trying to fix it. We also have what they call domestic resource mobilization strategy. The current one is ending and government is updating. Actually, it's now developing a new strategy. So all those strategies are trying to align to the NDP4 so that we have the money we need, we have the systems in place, the reform strategy, that is the PFM reform strategy, to try and pick out all these loopholes. But like I said, the people at Ministry of Finance, the people in government, it's our colleagues, it's your friends and what. And they're trying to do, I don't think anyone at Ministry of Finance wants to drive on a bad road or wants to make sure that the project is not completed, like the Ginger Express Highway. But now the question comes in, what's the motivation within the ministry or within the bigger power, the political team, the ministers and what's the priority? Daniel has just highlighted about the SDR. I think SDR is a very good, on paper and everything, it's a very good project. But do we need to have a high-speed train at this moment when we have such a bad roads? So what's the priority? SDR could be a very good priority that needs to be fixed, but what should come first? Can't we work on the 5-kilometer road first and complete that? Make the access roads within the community too, because SDRs will need goods to transport. And if we don't have the goods to transport and we have spent all this money in putting such a big project. So I think this, like you say, the system is very good. Parliament is approving things, but issues of fiscal indiscipline, I don't want to call it corruption, but you can call it corruption. Delay of projects because from here and there, someone needs a kickback. Someone needs to be facilitated to approve, to assign a document. Daniel is saying that it takes 3 years. Document has been approved. The project has been approved, and Africa Development Bank has their money to implement the project, but it has taken 3 years or 4 years before it actually starts implementation. What is the loopholes within that space? And I think this is the time where as Ugandans and the players within the system is where these conversations need to come in place. We need to be able to actually start talking about the thing, and events or dialogues like this needs to continue. And in the space, we need to come out and say, okay, we are moving on bad roads, we are paying the taxes, but we are not seeing the actual work on ground. So I think we need to start holding the implementers, the accountable people in charge so that they can easily implement some of these projects. We don't need to implement all the projects at once, but if we approve one, can that be completed in time? So,
all right. Yeah. Thank you so much. Let me turn to you, Mr. Suleiman Chigundu. And of course, from the submissions made so far, you can hear that people are concerned about failure to implement properly what Parliament has passed. And this brings in the role of Parliament in sustaining public investment management. And we would want to understand what will be the role, given this kind of realities that we are confronted with. You heard from Daniel, but you also heard from Stephen, the issues that keep coming out. Does your role stop up only at appropriating the resources and that's it? Or what else can you do to ensure there's prudent public investment management?
Yeah, thank you very much. Maybe the audience could benefit from the fact that we have our constitution, which is the supreme law of this country, and it lays down very clear roles of parliament. Article 77, the roles of parliament. One of the roles of parliament in terms of public investment management is approval of loans. Article 159. It shows the whole process of loan approval. For example, if Parliament is to approve any loan for any public investment, the terms, the conditions must be approved and discussed and scrutinized. So, in terms of prudential public finance management, as Parliament, we have done our role of one of the roles is policy guidance and making laws. We have the PPP laws, we have the Public Finance Management Act, we have all investment code has just been, uh, the amendment are passed, the procurement laws. For Parliament, ours is to legislate for proper use of public resources in terms of public investment. Now, what does Parliament do? They scrutinize all the loans, they question the efficiency, the utilization of loans, all of those, what have been talked about in terms of project delays. Sometimes we, through the various committees, Parliament questions why are there project delays, and the government agencies try to explain. Some of the causes of delays are well known in terms of delays in the compensation. Sometimes the population is very stubborn. Someone doesn't want the government money, and the rigidity of land laws in this country, government cannot acquire compulsory acquisition. So government will give all explanations that delay the project. But what I've been asked to talk about, what's the role of Parliament? Parliament, as I said, we appropriate the budget for public investment projects. Then the execution is for government and other agencies, and we do oversight. You have seen, if you happen to watch television for parliamentary committee work, in the public accounts committees, there is public accounts committee for central government, for COSASE, for government commissions, and for local governments. They have done a lot of work in trying to review the institutional work of the Auditor General, try and find out why projects are delayed. For example, you have all known about these projects that cause out of public resentment. Parliament has been at the forefront of trying to question government inability to implement the projects in time. So basically, for Parliament, the other role is representation. Members of Parliament represent you. You are the voters. Also, as a citizen, we are all responsible for maybe Parliament not performing because we not demand accountability. Now, we have all the public investment projects as talked about. Why are there public delays? In Uganda, I would say we are, if you look at per capita governance, we have governance at all levels. We have LOC, we have councillors for women, for children. I, as one person, can be, if you look at per capita governance, so why don't we demand accountability from all those people that we elect as voters? In terms of institutional policy making, our roles as Parliament, I would say I'm satisfied with the work in terms of ensuring that resources go to where they are needed best in terms of public investment. Now, whether the projects have been executed or they have been delayed, then that is to question government agencies and the ministries. Then I could also add oversight and monitoring. If you ask them to read Article 164 of the Constitution, it says Parliament shall monitor all. I'm not a lawyer, but lawyers here do. Here, I know there are lawyers. If they say shall, I think it means mandatory. Parliament shall monitor all expenditure of public funds. And we have done that. But sometimes a parliament is limited, of course, by resources for committees. Even where they do the accountability, parliament is not, it does its work, finding out the faults, but then the recommendations are referred to other government agencies, police, IGG, to the judiciary to follow on. Maybe they have misused the government funds. So in terms of demanding for prudence in public resources, I would say all of us are responsible. But as regards Parliament and its mandate, for example, there is no any single department has passed a budget in it or not in time. There is no any day where government has requested maybe for a loan that's to carry out public investment. Parliament has not approved. There is no any single day Parliament has rejected any government proposal. But when government Parliament passes the budget, like we did the budget they are going to read maybe on Thursday. Now, the onus is on every citizen to demand for a summary of the budget in terms of where the money gone. Because I've been here talking about where the resources. The budget is very clear. We have programs, 18 programs. There are 20 now, there are 18. Human capital development, transport, infrastructure, tourism, and everything. Now, the onus of every citizen is to look at the budget and unpack it. You demand the budget to be unpacked. As for parties that are here, you unpack the budget in your respective areas. Look at agriculture. How much money is there in agriculture? Look at local government. What's the money that goes to local government? The end users. Because we can't say and say the parliament has not done its job, or government has not done its role in terms of budgeting. The budget is there, 70 trillion, and it's allocated across all the various programs and agencies. Now, our responsibility as citizens is to ensure that where is the money going and who's responsible? And we should try to begin demanding accountability from even us, you as citizens, for us, the civil servants, because we cannot continue the blame game. Because everybody will blame the other one, and nobody at the end of the day will be held responsible. So, as Parliament, we have done our work.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Suleiman. But it would be criminal for me not to ask you this question. You know, I'm quite sure you followed the debate within the public domain about issues of budgeting. But when it comes to the budget of Parliament itself, it's very difficult to understand what is in that budget. It's an area that lacks some bit of transparency. Is this about to change, that we will be able to know what actually Parliament gets, how it spends it? Because it's very important as an institution which is pushing for accountability and transparency for us also to know what is in your budget.
But what is hidden about parliamentary budget?
We don't know.
Budget is like any other budget. You go to the Ministry of Finance website. If you had the internet here, you go www.budget.go. You look at the budget draft estimates. You put there vote 104, which is the Parliament of Uganda budget. You see the figure that has been passed. There's nothing that is hidden, because Parliament does not pass on the budget, execute it, and collect its taxes and spend them. The budget of Parliament is part of the Parliament of all, the budget of all other organs of government. And if you look at the percentages in terms of institutions, parliamentary budget as a parliamentary commission is less than 2% of the entire budget. If you are to look at let's say institutions, less than 2%. So this is public outcry that Parliament is hiding its budget. I don't know where it comes from. When the Parliament, the Parliamentary Commission budget is part of the books that are published by the Minister of Finance, there's nothing hidden. There's nothing hidden. What is not unpacked is maybe the individual money that, for example, I get. Well, I think that's what people want. But even the Minister of Finance, you cannot know what the PS, for example, Is there anywhere written that PS gets 2 million, another commissioner gets 3 million?
You can set an example.
That is what is in the policy statements. Every information is there. The only challenge that we, like as a country, like all European countries, that they say in the adage that if you want to write something, you put it in the book. Every information is there in the policy statement, in the budget estimates. There is nothing hidden.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. And now, in order for us to actually realize a meaningful budget, we need the funds. And from the resource envelope, we know our next budget is going to be 72.3 trillion shillings. And according to the Ministry of Finance, 37.23 trillion, which is about 52%, is supposed to come from us ordinary Ugandans. And this brings in you, Maureen. Women are at the center of trade and contribute a lot in terms of generating domestic revenue. We would like to understand, what do you think would be their response looking at the current trade environment, and how do you think this is likely to affect domestic revenue mobilization?
Thank you very much, Kenneth. Yes, of course, the current trade terrain that we are in presents the opportunities, and we are looking at also the challenges that comes with the current trend. But what I should say now is that we celebrate the women's resilience and adaptation, that we have seen over and over, that even when the challenges come, women try to, to move with the trend, diversify. And we are seeing women who are now trying to diversify their businesses in terms of the way they market, but also the products, because we are seeing women, what is moving out there, they are always on it. We change, So broadly, that is what we are seeing, the diversification of women's products and, looking at the current system, but also the digital adoption that is coming up. We are seeing women getting, marketing their products online, which wasn't, the case before. And we are celebrating this because of that time of COVID, that when COVID hit, everyone got, to change their mindset that we can, transact businesses online without us really being physically present in those spaces. So we are seeing that taking shape. We are seeing the mobile money businesses, transactions running all around, because now these days you cannot even run a business if you don't have the mobile money, or you're using Momo or things of the sort. And the other element that we are looking at also, that is really, trying to reshape the women and them trying to be resilient, is the form of access to finance, where they are going through these cooperatives, associations, because these are the ones that are grounding them to, to get money to boost their businesses. We appreciate what government is doing through the GROW programs, the PDMs, but that is still not enough, because if you have been seeing what is going on around GROW money, the women were already complaining. The money is not yet there, or it's there, but it's already taken by those who already have access to the right information and how to navigate the system. So that also becomes a challenge for the women who are already in trade. And the other bit is on the informality side, that most of the women who are in trade, they're informal. They're not registered, and that affects their access to the finance. Others don't have collaterals. So it's like, so many challenges around that. And this affects the government in terms of accessing the taxes or the revenue from these people, because you even don't know how many they are, even when we say the women are the majority, but we are not tapping this space, because we know women are into business, they are traders. But how are we getting the monies to support our budget that we are talking about, that the biggest percentage we are borrowing, yet we have this huge group that we can work with to support, and we raise our tax base. Then we now have the African Continental Free Trade Area. We have the Women Protocol, Women and Youth Protocol that has been, of course, ratified by our country. But again, how many women are into this? How many women have access to this information on African Continental Free Trade Area? Because we're already seeing that even women who are into trade within the East African community, they already, encompassing challenges, especially when it comes to harassment, when they are conducting their work, those non-tariff barriers, but also the policies keep on changing because they are not informed. I'm not learned. I cannot even read certain regulations. And the corruption that my colleagues here have been talking about, today you come up, it is a new law. You even don't know how to defend it, whether it is the real thing or it is not. So there are a number of issues that are affecting the women, but they are here to fight on and ensure that they push the agenda. And for us here, the CSOs, of course, government is to continue, of course, to engage and support the women in trade, especially through the trainings, giving them those platforms for them to engage, even when it comes to these matters of budgeting, because they're also not given the chance to, to have their voice in these matters and the policies that are, surrounding issues of trade. And then, of course, access to trade, to credit. We appreciate that. Like I've said, government is doing great work, but we need more money. We need more money, and we need government to continuously do the capacity building through the GROW program that we are seeing, but also making the environment for the CSOs more favorable, because CSOs are here to support government work. Yeah, so we are not here to fight each other, but to ensure that we can work together to have a better Uganda, which is rich. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. I'll turn to you, Mr. Aloysius Chitengo, represent the voices of civil society, and you'll continue with the discussion of the domestic revenue mobilization. You come from Siatini, Uganda, and recently you did launch a project called Stride, which looks at how we can address some of the gaps that exist when it comes to issues of domestic revenue mobilization. We have a task as a country to raise 37.23 trillion towards financing the next budget. What's your perspective on that? Is that a challenge that is likely to, is it a target that is likely to be met based on the past experience? You can kick off from there.
Thank you very much. Allow me to add on the voice on what I think you asked. Before I go to that, Mr. Lukwago, on the fiscal consolidation, where we had or we have three pillars. One of the pillar is talking about increase revenue mobilization. The second one is talking about reducing nugatory expenditures. And then the third one is looking at reducing the debt. And the way, when you look at how it is being structured, I think last year, we almost, the ministry failed to bring into the public domain for discussion because we were performing poorly. And it is high chance that even this time, we are going to be in the same boat. Because if you look at the 72 trillion minus the projection or the anticipated revenue mobilization of the 37, it means that we are in between. We are going to collect a half of the budget, and the other one is going to be debt, and worse when it comes to the aid, because we see the environment when it comes to aid is changing and it is not sustainable. And to be able to meet the difference in terms of revenue mobilization and the budget, it means that to be able to finance the current budget, the government is going to run for commercial loans because they are short term and they are easy to be accessed, and that means you're going to pay a lot of interest on those loans. So when you look at how the the DRM is structured in the way, the government is just looking at the projection because maybe based on what we have been seeing, when you look at what has been happening, there are shifts in the projections since the first national budget framework paper. I think it was 33. Then we came to 35. That is domestic revenue mobilization. And currently we are looking at 37. So the issue is, do we have real data to inform than just shifting with a shift in the budget? Because if you have the real data to inform what we are supposed to generate, it means that you will be having almost something which is related in terms of the real relation between what you are going to get and what you are anticipating to spend on. It is challenging in one way or the other, but when you are looking at it, you may say, okay, chances are high that we will be in position to generate the 37 trillion. But when you look at the variance in terms of the shift from 33 to now 37, you are asking yourself, what informed the first projection and now the current projection? When I was coming, when you look at the current, we are looking at the current state of the economy. Someone was saying the reason as to why we have a lot of traffic today, because the tax people and the people who are driving are complying with the road enforcement. And someone was saying that we are going to generate a lot of revenue from this, but it is just creating load certainty or sanity on the road. But if it ends and people become compliant, it means that we will not be having the revenue from the misbehaviors within the road. How can we make sure that we stop looking at projections, but looking at how can we generate adequate revenue to finance our development or finance our budget with real data that informs the real revenue we are going to generate? If we can be able to have that one, which is well researched, because the civil society under the Tax Justice Alliance in Uganda, we have been able to participate in the tax, in the provision of the alternative tax proposals. But the time given for us to effectively input into those issues is limited. And you find that when you look at what even the parliament was able to highlight, they were saying that our tax proposals are not informed by research. And if it was really informed by the research, you would have seen almost what I'm talking about, that you have something which is clear when it comes to knowing your taxpayers, the expected revenue can generate. Because to me, I would love to see that, okay, when the Uganda Revenue Authority says that we have surpassed the target, it is not magic, because you know how business is being done in Uganda, and you have at least a projection which is clear, and you know that at least for the people who are on the VAT list, you can generate this amount of money. The people who are in the formal employment, like the pay as you earn, you know how much you're going to generate. The business that are supposed to pay corporate income tax, you know how much you're going to generate. So the aspect of we have surpassed is not new, or it is not surprising. We want to see how much you generate and how much are you going to spend it when it comes to the provision of service delivery. I liked what Mr. Rukwago was talking about, the opaqueness. When it comes to the aspect of participation in the budget process, it is as if clear and free and welcoming. But when it comes to the utilization of that revenue, to me and you, even when you want to prove to the people, you can go down and ask them, which priorities did you front during the budget process? And the priorities that are being considered in this budget process or in the budget for the financial year 2025-2026, you might find that they are not linked. And that's where we have the challenge of tax apathy, because people feel that their taxes are not doing what they are supposed to do for them, because the priorities they set for them to be considered for the budget process are not put into consideration, and that demoralizes them. And that takes me to the two areas. Currently, when you look at our tax measures or the measures that are used, the indirect taxes is contributing more than the direct taxes to our resource envelope. And that means we are more looking at the value added tax, the excise duty, and other indirect taxes from the trade across. Meaning that The collection of indirect tax is easier because people don't know how much you are paying. You're talking about 18%, they even don't feel it. When you're talking about the excise duty, which is supposed to be subject at the ex-factory prices, people don't know about it. But when it comes to paying direct taxes, I think we have not developed URA, and the Revenue Authority has failed to create that environment where people can feel that really this is a service for us and we are supposed to pay the taxes. That tax morale is not put into the people. But you might find that even the tax incentives and exemptions in the corporate income tax regime is taking away a lot of taxes, a lot of tax for the government. And this has been exacerbated by lack of the cost benefit analysis. When you look at the current state of play, you find that we have awarded a lot of tax incentives and exemptions. And if you look at what was passed in the income tax, to me and you, when you look at, there are almost 4 or 3 proposals apart from there are 3 proposals or 4 in the income tax. The others are more of indirect taxes, and yet they have potential to generate more revenue. But within the income tax, there are more of tax incentives and exemptions. The first one is for the 3 years for the startups, and you find that they have been given, surprisingly, they have been given, which is, we welcome that proposal. They have been given a 3-year exemption. But when you look at the way it is structured, from, let me just say, 1 million to 500 million. But for those ones who are under 1 million and 150 million, they will not be generally benefiting more from that exemption. Why? Because they will be affected with the aspect of VAT and others, yet the others can be able to benefit from that. And you find that because of the tax incentives and exemptions, which are not taken into effective consideration in terms of rationalization, in terms of the cost benefit analysis, based on the criteria which we are awarding the tax incentives to these people, to ensure that what we have lost in terms of tax incentives and exemptions, we are going to get them in terms of income of people who are employed, the Ugandans or ESC citizens, but also even the backward and forward linkage for those ones who are invested, who are participating who are being employed by the sector, benefiting from tax incentives and exemptions. So you find that even the raw materials some of these companies are considered to be using, they are not put into consideration. Some of our tax incentives, we are losing when it comes to some of the tax incentives and exemptions we are awarding. Why? Because some of our employees are being employed as casual laborers, so they don't reflect on the pay as you earn list. And when it comes to the raw materials that are considered to be something which we can trade off, that can create the backward and forward linkage, is not put into consideration. And when you remember when the president was talking about, he said that when you come and invest, you are free to repatriate the money after paying your taxes. And remember, the taxes are subject to tax incentives and exemptions. That makes the income tax contribute almost less to what we can expect. So to me, I think, coming to the question, the projection is good to have a projection, but it should be realistic. Okay. Projection based on the information, but also looking at what would be the burden to the taxpayers, because to be able to meet this targets, the government is supposed to enforce to the dot to make sure that people are complying when it comes to their obligation of paying taxes. And this might force some of the taxpayers to hate paying taxes, because when you go to the other side of the services, me and you might find that the aspect of services, the fact that it has been totally liberalized, the taxpayers are supposed to pay for each and every services we are supposed to receive from the economy.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Chitengo. Now let's turn this discussion to the to be able to get maybe some more questions or comments, things that we might have not been able to touch on here, but which are also very important in the discourse of our national budget. I'm going to ask for a volunteer, somebody to help us move around the microphone so that we can get some questions or comments from you, the audience, as we continue reflecting on this budget. And remember, the theme that we are dealing with is prudent fiscal management for effective public investment and attainment of the tenfold agenda by 2040. Now, that's the target that we have as a country. By 2040, this economy must grow by tenfold, 500 billion shillings. Is this something that we can achieve, looking at how we are budgeting and how we are implementing the projects? Very key projects involved under the ATMs, like already highlighted by Madam Jane Nalunga in her remarks, but also the panelists here did touch some of them, but we're also conversant with some of these issues since the budget is already in our midst, since it was already passed by Parliament some time back. So quickly, let's get first a batch of 5, and then we'll get the responses, and then also continue to see if we can get more comments. So what you do, you just put up your hand, introduce yourself, and then keep your comment or question precise and to the point. Thank you so much. Let's begin from the back there.
I'm Doni Cyrus Ndazima from World Vision Uganda. I work as the advocacy research policy specialist. I just have a few comments to 2 points. One, there is a growing concern on the debt burden that Uganda is supposed to pay. And I want to really disregard this narrative. I think we are supposed to pay this loan because we took it, be very untrustworthy if we took someone's loan and we didn't pay it. So we are supposed to pay this loan. But the question would be to the legislator, Mr. Chigun Suleiman. Here, this is where you're supposed to help us as legislators. Why do we go in for loans when we are not very rational?
Just for a record, Mr. Chigundu is the director of the budget office in Parliament. He's not an MP.
Mr. Chigundu, here we have to be very rational when we are taking loans. For instance, the Kampala Express highway, 5 years, it has not taken off. We took that loan, we knew the conditions and we knew the terms. And right now, we are paying commitment fees. We are supposed to pay that in case we took the loan, which we did. We are supposed to pay. We shouldn't cry. We are not rational. We didn't do our job. Someone slept on the job and we took a loan. We are not very rational. So next time moving forward, we need to be very rational. We need to question, why are we taking a loan when we are not ready? Why should we go into that? It's a wastage of resources. Then secondly, Mr. Chitengo, I heard your cry, you really wanted exact budget estimates, projections. This can't happen because the economy runs on assumptions. In economics, we know that to run those assumptions, you look at inflation, interest rates, level of investment as functions of your national income. So there is no way you'll be able to have accurate projections. So this is the amount of revenue you'll have for this FY. It can't happen, but we're just running models based on a number of assumptions. And what you can do is just to come to the closest of those projections. Then lastly, when we say that these investment projects are late because of lack of really monies to pay, payments, compensations, this is not true. We go for these loans when we've made a very good case that we have money pay for these compensations. We can compensate these people. What happens? We just lie that we access the loan when exactly we do not have the money. And we go for land evictions, just like we wanted to have this compulsory land acquisition, which isn't the case with the World Bank. The World Bank says no, for you to move someone from their plot of land, you must ensure that they are resettled and they are supposed to be able to retain the level of livelihood they were before the project. So the project shouldn't again impoverish someone. So what Uganda does is to go back again is that the Act knows very, very well. So we must be very ready that when we are making a case for an investment, we have the monies. We shouldn't just convince the bank. We shouldn't lie. We should be realistic. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your contribution. Your questions will be responded to. We have another hand here.
Thank you very much. I am Moses Talvita. I'm the legal compliance officer for Uganda National Health Consumers Organization. I am afraid the panelists never hinted on the very obvious issues. For instance, every year there will be floods, and I hope you know the particular areas that are affected. Every year there will be Ebola or like diseases. Emergencies are recurrent. The other is in health. Patients are still being detained, even when we say that we have public health facilities. The private sector has highly commercialized, including even consultations. I also expected our very good panel to also talk about school fees, primary education, kindergarten, and higher institutions of learning, even when government has come up with loans. Those are indeed expensive. What is it that we are going to do to ensure that our citizens are safe? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Moses. Let's hear from Moses' neighbor. Yes.
Thank you very much, sir. Godfrey Mwanje is my name, chairperson Masaka City NGO Forum. Happy to work with the team. My three simple questions, one to Maureen. Maureen, you talked about the women not able to have collaterals to access business loans like in Grow. What do you have to say about the strategy of women getting these collaterals and titles from their husbands vis-a-vis the problem of women when they get rich, and this is the time they are getting rich using the collaterals of their husbands? How are we going to work it out? Because you may look at it as easy, but you are finding very, very many homesteads suffering from this kind of behavior, and even domestic violence comes up as a result. I think women organizations have to do a lot of work on this. The other goes to my brother, Mr. Nkwagu. He talked about the Ugandan budget as the most open, but also the most opaque. Kind of contradiction. When I marry that statement with what Madame Jane was talking about, how do we, are we not making these programs very, very elitistic? Do you think you can take this kind of information to the ordinary people who are mainly the taxpayers, when already, even at this level, we find a lot of contradiction? How can something be very opaque, at the same time be very open? When you take it down, can they understand? Finally, to Mr. Aloysius, my brother, why do we have projects and the Ugandan also not based on research, in a situation where Ugandans have very many people who could as well do research, very many youth unemployed who have done research, and this would be helping on unemployment? Why is Uganda not putting money on research, hence helping our youth to get jobs, and of course, having projections based on research? Do we have to leave it at that and we cry day in, day out, yet there would be enough possibilities to solve this problem? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Just behind you, there's a lady.
Thank you so much, moderator, Mr. Kenneth. My name is Elliot Gonzalo. I thought I was not going to mention anything, but I think, Daniel, you stick on my mind when you say our budgets are open and there's time thing. And I know Mr. Ching is going to ask why is that statement. But I think for me, as Maureen said, that we have alone, what are we doing as a civil society? Because I think we're supposed to take on the government, we are supposed to follow up to find out exactly what is happening. But I want to take back, Maureen, it is not a question, but I think you bring it very well when you say that women really don't have collateral. And it goes back to exactly what are we supposed to do? Just mentioned that yes, we are talking about industrialization, But again, women are still using a home. Jen, I wanted to give you information that maybe for you are coming from Kasa, but in Uganda, I think if we, as you said, if we really did research very well, we still have households who don't have even enough food. And it's becoming a very big problem. In my community, you have to go and borrow a home. In our spaces where we do agriculture, subsistence agriculture, which the President Museveni mentioned in his State of the Nation, people still don't have gold, enough of them. There is one of the person who's standing in for parliament. When she went to the households in Chica, she gave out gold and pangas. And that really gave that person a high percentage of winning, meaning that we still need that. Mr. Chiku, my question, how are we going to continue borrowing all this money? I know you don't have that question because you have to borrow. But where is the priority? Where is the priority in terms of borrowing money and we're investing in businesses that are not giving back? I would have loved to hear Aloysius talking about how trade has taken us in terms of our investments, in terms of our incomes, and in terms of regionalizing exactly what we are doing. Lastly, to you, Maureen, I was expecting you really to talk about the issue of gender responsiveness in our budgets. It is something that we are losing, and we took a lot of time really to say, Uganda, as we plan, as we budget, we need to think of responsiveness. But since we are getting out of it and we are only now talking about the debt, and of the debt that we are going to get in its capacity that is not going to service what every Ugandan is supposed to have. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. One more comment and then we'll get the responses and then do another round.
Thank you very much. Mine is just only one. Kaswandi Charles, Executive Director, South Uganda Anti-Corruption Organization from Masaka is my name. Here we wonder, it's unfortunate we don't have an MP here, but we wonder how our MPs sit down in Parliament as this budget. Because really, our main income is agriculture. When the MPs are out of Parliament, they say the truth. That really we have to fight tooth and nail so that most of the budget portion goes to agriculture. But when it comes to reality and passing the budget, you find something different. As if MPs, they go in Parliament and say, last time they passed the budget without my presence, let me go and pass today. Because there is no meaning. When they're out, their words are different from what they do in the Parliament. Here you can't say that in Uganda, our main income is agriculture. And if it comes to allocation, most of the money is put in the president's home. So unfortunately, we don't have an MP here, but he should have seen how tough I am on agriculture, putting money far from agriculture. Lastly, I see there is no MP here. Let me.
Mr. Chigundu is here. He will surely carry the message to the MPs.
Okay, if Mr. Chikundu is here, my concern is about members of Parliament. As I said, when they are out of the floor, they talk exactly what the masses need. They talk our voice outside the floor. But on the floor, they pass different. What is the essence? The aim. Not only on one item, not only on the budget, but on even the bills themselves. What they say outside the floor, when they are with us in the community, is different, very different.
I think you've made your point. Thank you so much.
The reason is why MPs saying another language outside the Parliament, and in the Parliament they change the language.
All right.
That is why.
All right, thank you so much. Let's get the responses and then we'll come back for another round of questions. we don't want to lose some of the key points that have been put across. If we take so many questions, we might lose focus. Let's get the responses. And let me begin with you, Mr. Aloysius Kitengo. A couple of questions came directly to you. We'll use that that opportunity for you to actually respond to those questions, and also follow the line the way you're seated for comments and responses to the issues raised from the plenary.
Thank you very much. And I love the questions. I love what my colleague, is it from the World Vision? Yes, I was talking about having, I didn't say exact, but something related. Let me just read for you this data. September 12th, our tax to be collected projected was 33.182 trillion. The budget was 57.441. February, that is budget, the second budget call circular. The revenue was 35.692. The budget was 66 point something. March 2025, the revenue was 36.8 plus. And then the budget was 71. And now, currently, we see revenue projection 37.23. We are looking at the budget of 72. We need to understand, was it informed by the research and data? You can have something, and let me tell you this one. I didn't talk about the local government perspective, which is the same. I was engaging one of the ministry and I was asking them, do you have the budget statement for your department? And they said no. And at that time, the government has released the National Budget Framework paper. What informed it? Are you understanding? Because after the reading of the budget, they are going to start with planning, which is supposed to be informed by the previous aspects or priorities. So research is key, but also we should also look at being realistic with the information and the data we are putting into place. I liked what Madam Jane was talking about. We should not look at the data or digits alone, but what is happening. You have to have information on what is happening to be able to plan accordingly for your people. So to me, I think we cannot have exact data when it comes to the budget, and we cannot have exact data when it comes to the revenue, but you can have something related, which is key. And we need to be realistic, because if you don't have that, and you look at the current budget as it is 72 trillion, you're looking at projection of collecting 37. It means that you are going to borrow to be able to fund that one, because you promised. And that's why you are going to say that we gave you the money. And let me just tell you this one. The current state of our budget is in the way that we are using money as it comes into the resource envelope. We don't have savings that we are going to get from there and then be able to finance the budget. As we get money recollected by the Uganda Revenue Authority, and then we will be able to spend. So what is there is what is being spent. So to me, I think we just need to look at how can we ensure that we have data to inform what we are looking at in terms of revenue projections, but also even in the budget processes, informed by the available information, but also being realistic and linking it to the current priorities. Because if we don't link it to the current priorities of the people, we are going to continue to say that people are not interested in anymore in the budget issues, but they don't see value in terms of linking their priorities to the taxes they are paying. Me and you can agree to agree or agree to disagree. I've combined that one with Mr. Mwanje. On Madam Elliot, on the trade, I didn't talk about trade because I was asked about DRM. But also, even before I go to that, when you look at what was happening, I think in the first National Budget Framework paper, they indicated that local government is going to contribute around, I think, 292 plus. And that was because they didn't have data to inform the real projection. And now we are looking at, currently it is 382 trillion. The question is, were they able to get the accurate data projections from local government? That is the issue. So if you don't have the information with you at your fingertips or informed by the research, you are not going to have something which is relative informing you in the policy formulation. When it comes to issues of trade, to me, I think what was happening when you look at what is going on, the trade wars, we can't ignore them. Uganda and Kenya, Uganda and Rwanda, Uganda and South Sudan, because we are more trading in almost the same items at the ESC level. So the non-tariff barriers and the protectionism which is being applied is checking on our ability to trade with the ESC member states. So to me, I think when it comes to that, and I liked what the government did on they call it commercial diplomacy. They allocated some money. We have been trying to request the government to allocate some reasonable resources to commercial attaches who are within our embassies to be able to advertise, sell what we have in Uganda so that we can be able to get markets within those countries where we are doing business, where we have our embassies, and they don't have those issues. They don't have those goods and services which we have in plenty in Uganda. So to me, that was a good step, but we need also to set targets. Saying that we are going to finance them, we need to look at, if you're going and you are our commercial attaché or commercial diplomat, you should be looking at the environment within there. What can we sell in Sierra Leone? Is it beans? Can we also even have dinners, if possible, selling our commodities, Ugandan Ugandan foods within there, so that people can be able to even purchase items from here, come and do trade within Uganda, even come to do tourism in Uganda. So to me, we need to have targets when it comes to the aspect of giving allocating reasonable some money to the commercial diplomats to ensure that we have targets, and targets should be informed by what we have in relation to what we can sell in those countries, because market is competed for and we need to be competitive enough to be able to utilize and access the available markets and those ones which we have signed on for our private sector to benefit. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chitengo, for your quick response there. Let me recognize the arrival of the Honorable Michael Kakembo, Entebbe Municipality MP. He's also a member of the Finance Planning and Economic Development Committee. Thank you so much for joining us. Better late than never. Thank you so much. But let's continue with the responses. And Stephen, quick response to some of the issues that have come across.
I want to respond to Moses Talibita. Moses, you said we didn't talk about disaster preparedness and emergencies. The PFM Act at least caters for that every day, I think 3% of the budget of the previous years be allocated for emergency. So there's that emergency fund. The other question is, what's the access rate of that money? And is it adhered to? Does government adhere to that? Is there money actually allocated for that? So at least there's some money for emergency and preparedness. Elliot asked that, what's the priorities for borrowing? The NDP4 is going to be implemented based on the 10-fold growth strategy, which is now everything that everyone is talking about. My problem with that is, I think the government took motivation that if your dream is not big enough to scare you, then you are not dreaming big. I think the government took it personally. So now we have a 10 growth fold strategy that we need to actualize. But if you look at our growth rate, currently and the projections doesn't take us there. If you look at the revenue collection we are making, it doesn't take us there. There's no information that really, based on research, you've been arguing about research. I know most of the projections are based on assumptions and what, but we need to come close to reality. So it might not be the actual data, but we need to come close to reality. So we have what the government is now terming ATMs, which is agro-industrialization, tourism, manufacturing, minerals, and then extractive sectors. So the government is trying to look at those priorities. And I think in every discussions and conversation with government, they are talking about the ATMs. Someone asked that agriculture is our biggest employer. Why is it not catered for? In the ATMs, agriculture, agro-industrialization is the first step. Now, the actual thing is, how do we actually actualize these priorities? How do we borrow and put it within this space? So I think the government has the priorities, but now actualizing is what we are, implementation of these priorities is actually what we are talking about. And more of the conversation and research that CRTINI and the CSOs are doing should actually focus within the priorities for government. Thank you.
Yes, Daniel.
I think just wanted to emphasize on the point of where I think the first, I didn't get the name correctly, on the issue of projects not having counterpart funding. I think my point was it is a distortion caused by the system of bringing unplanned projects in the budget. The parachute project, parachute just comes from nowhere and inserts itself and it takes precedence. So it affects all other projects. Because this, some of the projects, as Mr. Muhammad said, you can't check in the public investment plan. They're not there.
Kindly, if you can move
One
the
of them is
microphone
Luo.
closer
It's
to
not, it's not
yourself.
in the PPP.
If you can
It's
move,
not in the public investment plan.
thank
But
you.
the amount of money it's taking is huge. So it affects the entire spectrum of other projects. And that's what causes the distortion you are seeing. That's why projects stall. Yet the money has been borrowed. And you know, borrowing is not bad by the FOC. It's okay with us borrow, but of course you have to borrow carefully. But also, as my colleague has said, Stephen, you know, there's also overambitious. You know, even at personal level, you don't want, because these banks, I know them very well. You get a loan. They will call you the next day and say, by Mr. Can you top up? That's how development, even international, it works like that. They always incite you, do you want to borrow? Yeah. If your appetite is high, you get another loan. I've seen businessmen who are doing very well. Small buildings, the business running well. The banks start persuading. They get, then they discover they can't pay back their loans. That's what happens to government. And in fact, if good enough for government, it can't go bankrupt the way we think. It would stay there in that confusion until maybe some donor says, I've given you the loan. The way they did, you know, those who were in debt cancellation. I was part of those who spent all time working around debt cancellation, again, debt network. And then we got that multilateral debt cancellation, which now we are back where we started from. So that's because governments, unless the government defaults, which can happen, but that takes time. So the capital borrowing is much easier for government because the incentives are very there. The lenders will always give you money. They can't fail to give you money. So we need to manage how these projects are put in the budget. If a project comes from nowhere, it will distort the entire system. The issue of, I think, the issue of climate effects and disaster. Of course, my colleague mentioned there's a contingency fund, but I'm not very sure. Maybe, Mr. I don't know where the money is allocated. Because the last time that is supposed to get 3% of the budget, approved the previous year's budget, approved budget. But I don't think the last time Parliament tried to put that money there, it was removed. If I'm to be recalled, they removed that money. They said that for us, imagine in a budget constrained environment where you don't have money, even at personal level, who of you plan is for emergency? Very few. It's human behavior. There is no way you're going to plan for emergency when you don't have food. There is no way. I know how we behave, even at our level. You don't have money and you're planning, you're talking about some money. First, used to have in Uganda, some, whatever they call it, what? Why you keep some money for emergency? Who of you has it? You survive when it comes, it comes. That's how we are, but unfortunately, because the budget is constrained, I told you, you see the mistake we make, and I want us Parliament to change the law. Stop talking about 72 trillion. That's the resource envelope. It's not the budget. The budget is 30 trillion. The other balance is for debt. what they call treasury operations, bond buying, government bonds, small payment, domestic debt, paying external debt is not part of. There is no money called 72 trillion. It is 32 trillion. So let's talk about 30, not 70. Because it confuses a human being in the village. There is no money. Let's go back to original statement. Let the budget be a budget. This sort of is a different concept. And to confuse so many people. Because the other balance is not there. 40 plus is not there. It's not for allocation. And even that 34 billion has what they call statutory obligations, which you have to first remove. By the time you finish all those processes, you have 20 trillion. Then you start dividing out of the 20 programs. You will get nothing. I gave you an example. As we speak now, the government has spent only 7% of the total spending up to the half year on what they call human capital development, where they have education, health, social protection, and some wash. Only 70% was spent on that program. The other balance, I told you, 65% went on debt and interest payment for the entire half of the year. So there is no money. Completely, there is no money. So when we talk about this budget, there is no money, I can tell you people. No one should deceive you. There's money. What they do, and if you ask the ministry, they will tell you they don't get money, they don't get in the development grant, nothing, zero. What we have been doing, as you mentioned, fiscal consolidation is about reducing the expenditure or managing expenditure. So what the government has been doing, if you take the figures, they have been cutting development spending because you can cut some on salary. So those salaries are standard. With the resource very little, what you're going to do is cut development spending. The roads, the dams, those are the things they cut. And then they spend on salaries, wage, and non-wage. People have survived, have fear. Ministers have a convoy of 5 cars. One time I was on Tebe Road, I saw I think they sit on Tuesday or Monday, that you see the convoy. Why don't they go in a bus if they're all going to the same meeting? You get one escort in front, behind, you use a bus. The way the Queen did when they went for Queen's burial, put them in the bus and put one escort behind and behind. They're going for the same meeting. Each minister had a patrol in front, 2 in behind 2. Those are 10 guys, very high speed. We are spending, but we are a poor country. You find a minister in a country, like a student, he's not bicycle. No one is bothered about you. Some of the ministers, we don't even know them. But now they are. So the amount of spend on those people on a poor country like ours, it hurts. By one time I said I will never give anyone who is not a president. I can't give you really light of way. You have to shoot me. There's no way. I can see some of them are just. You are in the jam. They are the one causing the jam, but they want you to get off the. Go where? The place is full of potholes. You go where? But that's a country where you find that, and we're here talking about there is no budget, there is no money in the economy. That's what I'm talking about when I asked you. When I told you the budget is transparent but opaque. Open because in the process of allocating money, everyone is happy. It's like in my home when I call my family and you sit there, tell them what you want. They write their shopping list. I know when you tell them what you want. But you know very well, in your mind, they are jokers. You write them right. You write, don't worry. And then at the end of the day, you sit down and say, my brother, for me, I don't quarrel with children. You just buy whatever you want. I can't buy what I know is necessary, and I give you. I tell you, my friend, that is what we can afford. That your budget is there. That's what I'm talking about. When it comes to allocation, you come here and allocate, be happy, make proposals. When the real spending starts, if me, the owner of the budget, the one who is holding the money, I want to take 2 beers. I'm going to take my 2 beers, irrespective of what your needs are, the children. I'll take my 2 beers, the balance I will what? Allocate to your children. That's what happens. The people who have the money, they will use it the way they want, and the balance they give you. But when you ask them, how did you spend that? They will never tell you that I took 2 beers on the money you had allocated. That's what I talk about the opaqueness in the spending. You go and ask any government official today to give you the spending money budget, where they will show you that one. No, never. Because they know you ask so many questions. So for me, the issue and I like this question of say what the role of civil society. I think civil society has a role in monitoring the budget. But I think there's also an extent we can go in terms of holding government accountable. It's not a very, as you know, it's not a very easy environment to monitor government nowadays. Let's not deceive ourselves. But we can do what we can. One thing I know, I already told people, always let's take this thing personal, at a personal level. For you, you are talking about domestic level mobilization. I had a chance to do some small businesses. But my frustration is how those guys at local government operate. It's so frustrating. You go there, forget a small license. The guy puts his coat, he says, he's not around. Come back afternoon. You come afternoon, the man said, today he has gone, he's sick. You have come to pay trading license, but you can't find office. Then they tell you, call me on my phone. Then you call them, they say, okay, how much are you supposed to pay? 400. Oh, come back tomorrow. You spend the whole week chasing a license. Then if you don't pay it, they come and look your house, your business. That's why you pay. But they're the one who don't want to pick the money. So how do we change the mindset of our local government people that what we are doing is for their benefit? But if they are frustrated the local person on paying the money, and then you expect to increase the local revenue, how do you increase it? And also creating employment for the people who employ. Small boys, you employ maybe 5, 10 people who have no jobs. You employ them, but you earn a lot of dress to get this government to approve your activity. When talks about formalization of business. So we still have a challenge of mindset of our people at a local level. Because some of them really, they think that maybe money comes from somewhere in Kampala, and then it doesn't matter whether you contribute or not. So for me, the fundamental question, and I want us to take from this discussion, is that there is no money. And in a very small, constrained environment of money, with so many competing needs, the poor and the weak or the voiceless will suffer. And that's why I think civil society can come out to say, use the voiceless. Can we talk for them? Because they will not get anything, I can assure you. You can even see it, particularly when you go to health centers. Until someone went to Mulago Hospital and realized how those guys operate. When I saw the judge making that statement, me, I knew. Because I know she would have gotten the service. Because people just feared to confront a judge and they said, do you have anything? They just feared. But for another person, will tell you point blank. You want a service? How much do you have? That's how cuts across the entire system of health services. And that's because there is no provision. When you spend only 70% of your budget or spending on those critical services, what do you expect to get from those services? And that 70% has 90% wages. So in terms of medication and other facilities, there is zero remaining. That's the facts we are working with as a country. So how do we improve the resource envelope? Is something I think we need to work harder, but also how do we cut on the appetite to spend on what you call the wasteful expenditures, which we see every day. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You know what surprises me amidst all those shortages, he talks about our leaders are unfortunately able to actually budget for donations. The taxpayers want services, they tell them there's no money, but they're able to pick money from the budget and give back to the taxpayers under the guise of donations. Anyway, maybe I do not know most of these things of budgeting, but let's proceed with Maureen responding to the questions which were directed to you.
Thank you very much, Kenneth. Please allow me to start with Elliot's comment. Elliot, you commented on the, us taking forward the gender responsive budgeting, which is very key. And that also goes with our gender responsive taxes. I mentioned it, but I think it didn't come out very well on your end. Yeah, but also I wanted to talk about on the element of technology adaptation, where you're talking about the handy hoe. I wanted just to bring clarity to the space that the African Union already adopted retiring the handy hoe back to the museum. It is in Manga the Agenda 2063. And this came from Ugandan women that Institute for Social Transformation took to Addis Ababa during the Heads of State Summit. And these women said, we are tired of using the hand hoe. Please retire it. It has served us well. You understand? And I think most of the countries have adopted this, and they are trying now to look for ways of how do we bring technology to support the women, because we know they are overworked. And you have also highlighted that the hoes are not enough, that even you find that in a family there is one hoe. So how will this facilitate the family, to ensure that they are also food secure? Because you don't have even the gadgets to use. So I just wanted to bring that this is a voice we should carry forward, but with action, because we need action. On the side of the, I didn't get your name. Yeah, but you talked about issues of violence that is being caused because of these programs that government has brought forward to support women.
That's Mr. Mwanje from Masaka.
Yeah, Mr. Mwanje. Yes, violence has always been there. And we are trying to do our level best as CSOs, but also government through the different ministries to ensure that violence is reduced. But what I wanted to highlight is that for us to handle issues of violence, it requires a multifaceted kind of approach where we are looking at the economic base of the women, where are they economically, but also the men inclusive, because we are not living solely independent as women alone, because in this world God created the two of us, men and women. But we are also looking at the political side, where are the women's voices when it comes to decision making, when it comes to owning land, because we all know the social norms that are also straining women from access to land. There, of course, the government has worked on some of these policy issues to ensure that the policy environment can facilitate women to have land, but on the ground, what exactly is happening? Those are the issues we are talking about. That when we talk about issues of violence, we are talking about the three pillars: the political, the economic, and the social. They have to be aligning to each other for us to ensure that women or the violence is reduced. And we have also to ensure that we implement the well-tested models that are working. One of the models is the gender action learning system that we have tested, that it really works, because it brings the two pillars in the home together to ensure that they plan effectively. You see, that if we can embed the gender action learning systems in all the work that we are doing, we shall fight the violence that we are talking about as a nation. Thank you very much.
Right, let's now hear from Mr. Chigundo.
Thank you very much. There are questions to do with the debt burden, why do we borrow, prioritizing, then agriculture. And I think I'll begin my comments. But first of all, thanking and applauding Siatin for this engagement. I have on so many occasions requested civil society and other budget stakeholders that understanding the budget, appreciating it, it cannot be an event like this. It's a process. If you look at the Public Finance Management Act, all what has been asked here is answered in terms of, for example, people asking, why do we borrow? How much should we borrow? To borrow to do what? The PFM is very clear on how government contracts debt and the constitution. For example, there is under the PFM, when the Minister of Finance is submitting budget documents, one of the requirements to also bring the debt utilization report and also the medium-term debt strategy. Amount of money that government to borrow in the medium term and in a given financial year. And to bring all that information, government does what they call debt sustainability analysis to look at our debt levels. Are we sustainable if we borrow? If the numbers show that we can't borrow beyond this, the government cannot borrow. So whatever is brought to Parliament, because the debt sustainability analysis is done by a consortium of technical experts from the Central Bank, NDPA, Ministry of Finance, EPRC, and even Parliament, we participate. So having come out with a debt strategy that realize that our debt are within our manageable levels, that's when you can only borrow to finance the budget. Where is the money? Where does it go? The money goes to priorities. For example, every MP, every individual here, we all come, we stay within the environments of Kampala and the metropolitan, where the roads are not good. And everybody feels happy if has a plot of land on an area that is being opened up by a new road. Where do you go all that money? Is through borrowing. So even the borrowing that Mr. Danny talked about, the very recent one, was to finance those huge areas and backlogs in terms of infrastructure. So borrowing, as Mr. Kwaku said, is not bad, but all depends how do we use the money.
Mr. Chigundo, I think you're not getting the frustration of the people who asked that question. I think it came from the background that money is borrowed. You make commitment to borrow money, but then you are not using the money, and then you're paying commitment fees, and that's when people start asking a question: why are we borrowing?
Okay, let me look.
And the expectation is that Parliament that approves the borrowing should do more due diligence and take a stand and say you can't borrow because you are not going to meet this particular expectations.
Yeah, thank you for that intervention. And that's why I think we are here. People talking about the public investment management strategy that was recently launched by the Minister of Finance. The aim of that was to ensure that any project that goes through the public investment plan is audited throughout the processes, such that if it requires counterpart funding, the money is there. In the Parliament, before Parliament approves any loan, we have a criteria. The Committee of National Economy has a very clear-cut written criteria for allowing any debt, any loan to be approved. Is the loan going to be utilized? The cost-benefit analysis, all of that. They demand the financial agreement, financing agreements, and that's part of what is embedded in the Constitution. So now, for the role of Parliament would be that the public investment management system that has now been launched is implemented to the latter. By doing what? First of all, exiting projects that have been completed, because in the past there could be projects that are kept on in the PIP, but all of that is being sorted out. So let us support this new reform in terms of cleaning up the entire public investment management system so that only projects that, for example, have adequate funds, have right of way, have counterpart funds are the ones that are brought in the budget. And I think if you look at NDP, Minister of Finance with NDP, they are using what we can call a government approach in terms of ensuring that there is coordination of all projects. In the very past, it was very possible for any ministry to go and maybe source a project that doesn't go through the system. Now there is nothing like that under the new arrangement. So what Parliament can ensure is that only money in the budget that has gone through the entire project cycle and approval processes. Then another issue related to this, still under the PFM, there is what they call multi-year commitments. We used to have projects that start in 1 year, the money is not put in the budget for the next financial year. I think that was showed under the PFM, what they call multi-year commitments. If the project is 5 years, we need to approve the entire 5 years as the medium-term expenditure framework, such that each year they keep on giving money so that the project is not left in the middle of implementation, because that becomes a deadweight investment. You put 3 billion for project of 4 billion. If you don't complete it, there are no returns on investment. So that's what all prudential public management and public management is all about, ensuring that all the projects that have gone through the entire process of vetting through the system are the ones that find their way in the budget, and the Parliament is trying to enforce that. Then the other issue is about agriculture. I've said it to the society and the people who are interested in understanding how the budget works. If you say put money in agriculture, doesn't mean finance the Minister of Agriculture and all officers. It means facilitating agriculture. That's why government adopted the program approach. In order to improve agriculture, for example, you need infrastructure. I was looking at my numbers here. The amount of money that went to infrastructure was 6 trillion. Compared to last year's 4 trillion. By investing in infrastructure, indirectly you are providing money for agriculture development, because we need markets, we need access. But they talk about ATMs, including trade, tourism, industry. If there is no trade, there is no agriculture. You have been talking about commercial diplomacy, giving money to foreign missions to look for markets. Those markets are for what? They are to facilitate agriculture. So for us in the budgeting, we don't say that you put money in agriculture in terms of the ministry or agency in agriculture. That's why government adopted a program approach. If you aggregate all the small components of money that facilitate agriculture even if it is human capital development, that is health. A person to cultivate, to dig, it needs to be in good health. So if they put money in health, indirectly they are facilitating agriculture. So for me, this notion of saying that money is not put in agriculture, I think it shouldn't be around this table. This table should be for people who can analyze the budget, look what the Minister of Agriculture budget, look by line item. If you make a blanket increment of, say, 100% increment in the Ministry of Agriculture, that means you are giving officers more money for workshops, more money for travel abroad, more money for whatever, because those are the line items. But you facilitate agriculture, facilitate interventions that go in making agriculture grow, not merely the agriculture per se. That's my view on trying to understand how budgets are allocated. Then finally,
while you're throwing it back to us, we actually think it's the parliament that should be looking at those lines you're talking about and ensuring that the money that is given to the Minister of Agriculture actually goes to tangible issues other than workshops and travels abroad that you're talking about. I think people's thinking is that tangible amounts of money should be placed, like, for instance, in issues that will drive agriculture. We've been talking about the hand hoe. People want to see tractors. Tractor schemes have been talked about for quite some time, but money is always a problem. Can we see a considerable amount of money, an intervention maybe from Parliament, to see to it that money for mechanization is in place, money for irrigation is in place? That's how you facilitate agriculture to grow.
Yeah, and as everybody has agreed with Daniel here, that Uganda's budget is the most open, most consultative. Parliament does not initiate the budget. The budget is initiated from the stakeholders. It is a bottom-up approach. And then for us to receive the final product of where government has allocated the resources. Now, all of you do interact with the local governments. Let them put those proposals. Those proposals are compiled into budget framework paper, the policy statements. For us, we consider the final product, and you can hardly change. The law doesn't allow Parliament to increase even by one shilling. Doesn't allow us to increase. So it's and we are all a government. So the prerogative is the responsibility of all of us. So the task I'm giving everybody here is to try to appreciate that the new program approach was meant to solve the silo approach. For everybody to think about himself. If you are to improve agriculture, what are those other agencies that are responsible for agriculture development? That's what the government has done. It's a new initiative, the program approach, what the sectoral approach. Let us give this chance and opportunity to grow, especially now that we have NDP4. This is the first year.
All right.
Maybe the question here would have been, did the parliament try to do a compliance alignment of the budget to NDP4? We tried our best because the common notion and adage is that we have very good plans that are not implemented. So for parliament, we always do a compliance audit. NDP for this is the first year. Now, your role and my role and everybody's role is to ensure what is the plan and what is in the budget. Is there any consistency? If there's no consistency in each of the sectors, then we begin the conversation from there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chigundu. We'll take another round, a final round of comments, because time is not on our side. And I'll I don't know where should I begin from behind. There's already somebody with a microphone.
Thank you so much. Kenneth, your namesake, himself also said that there's no money, but the minister has always told us money is coming. Yeah, so I think I disagree with you that money is coming. I mean, money has come. So my name is Robert Yacha. I'm an environmental rights defender, executive director, Agnes. I'm going to underscore the issue of climate change, which has been defined, you know what, in the budget proposal. My point is about issues of disasters, and I want to give the figures that in the last financial year, we only earmarked 5 billion for disaster risk reduction. Now, the issue that we're talking about, the contingency fund, was the most abused in my assessment, despite the fact that we actually have an environmental tax on all products that pollute the environment. But Mr. Chifundi, you're talking about the Public Finance Management Act. It prohibited the establishment of the environment fund or the climate fund, and we are still pushing back as a society to see that all the money that is collected as a result of environmental degradation and environmental pollution should be used to, protect the environment, especially in the budget. But this time around, we see that the environment, apart from the president talking about it, is not being taken for in this budget. And I want to speak to the issue of which colleagues have raised the issue of how climate smart and how climate resilient is the budget. We see that over 49% of the population is out in the money economy. I remember when the PDM was being launched, the president was saying that we need to focus on how we can bring this population into the money economy. Out of the 10.5 million households, 3.5%, 3.5 million are outside the money economy. We have been putting 1 trillion Ghana shillings per year into the PPM. How has it been able to? How has it been able to perform? And we've been seeing the president moving across the country trying to supervise the goats and those animals, the livestock. But we see that those livestock, they are so vulnerable and they so susceptible to the effects of climate change because of the issue of the long droughts in the communities. 70% of the population is still under subsistence farming, and we don't see that we are going to focus on how we can have climate smart agriculture, which Kenneth is talking about. So what are we doing? Because we're talking about ATMs. Agriculture as where most of the people are, we are not trying to see how we can make it cope up with climate change, climate resilience. According to our National Climate Action Plan,
as you wind up,
yes, climate plan NDC framework, we are supposed to make sure that we mobilize $4 billion per year to ensure that we green our economy, we build the climate resilience of our people. It's about 14 trillion. How much money are we in the budget? Finally, greenhouse gas emissions. We said the budget is focusing on the minerals, oil and gas sector, to see that we explore and exploit that resource. But according to the climate action plan, we are supposed to ensure that we reduce our greenhouse gas emissions to a tune of 24.7%. But we don't see the deliberate action and approach by the proposed budget to see that we reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. Certain here will tell us, and Madam Jen talked about Napuyang about the effects of climate change, that we are working towards the deadline of December, where the EU, the EU Directorate of Deforestation is going to be biting gas. When we are fighting at UCDF, the Minister of Agriculture, we said, Minister of Agriculture should help to register the farmers so we beat the deadline. And now we see that now where we are going to be caught by the deadline, and yet over 60% of our coffee is going to the European market. What are we doing to see that we actually beat some of this deadline, especially by marking the money, supposed to the capacity of our coffee farmers? Already the prices are going down.
Thank you so much. I think you've made a point.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's take another comment.
Thank you. Just to pick it up from where Rob has highlighted the issue of climate change, I would.
Your name, please?
My name is Richard Brady. I work in an organization called the Populous Foundation International. Basically, we do policies focus On the issue of climate change, I would like to put on the spot the World Bank funded program, and this directly goes to Valdo. And under your program called Dr. D, Government Response to Displacement Impacts Projects in refugee hospitals. And in this case, I put Namor, that hosts refugees from South Sudan. And the objective of that program basically is access to finances, and I think Madame Maureen highlighted how women should actually have access to credit. But when you look at that program on the ground, it's not actually being managed well. There's gross mismanagement actually at the office of the Prime Minister. And my question now, does the World Bank Country Office in Uganda have control over monies, or these are grants, by the way, they're not loans. I mean, sorry, they're loans, they're not grants. And in a way, we have to pay. And the way Dr. Deep wants, he grows his money. And again, you have approved. I know as World Bank, you fund sectors like social protection, education, wash, and others. So does the World Bank Country Office in Uganda, because we try to alert the World Bank in Washington how this program has been mismanaged. And I know how 500 million was withdrawn from DHC Bank in Gulu. The money just went picked by often the Prime Minister's official with connivance with district officials of Namor, and then driven back to Kampala. And yet, objective number 3 of Dr. Deep talks of environmental management. And we know how land and environment is being degraded in northern Uganda as a result of what's on refugees. And that shows us what we are doing. And at the African Union level, we've actually argued them that address the structural issues that are happening in those countries, especially the governance structural issues, so that people don't cross international borders and qualify as refugees. It's much cheaper than when you bring them to Uganda. And we brag that well, we have the best refugee policy, but it's dawning on Uganda in terms of environment, life. And when we look at what is happening in northern Uganda with the influx, the influx of Balalo, Madame Maureen talked of land ownership. And where do the women fall? Actually, if you look at the issue of land contestation in northern Uganda, it's a very big issue. And for me, can the World Bank engage, especially phase 2 of Dr. D? It has been approved. And it's all about power sharing, power influence here and there. You find a minister trying to grab this, because first of all, the capacity of Lamont is local government to absorb all that money. It's not even, it's very inadequate. Now, they have gone to issues of spillover. Districts that are hosting refugees, but they are still over. So the money is just being divided. But who has the powers? Who is the minister and all that? So can you actually, can you have a way of how civil society can be co-opted so that we money, when you talk of role of civil society, but it's not easy to hold government accountable. But in this case, we are appealing to you, especially the county office, because I wrote to the World Bank in Washington, D.C., and we are actually being referred to the World Bank county office. Can we, Dr. D, too, be able to co-opt civil society as one of the mechanisms to hold government accountable? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Another round.
Thank you. Thank you so much. My name is James Opito. I coordinate the Civil Society Coalition on Oil and Gas. We are hosted at Accord. And the mission is to ensure that the investment in the oil and gas sector benefits all Ugandans. With the fear of the dark disease and the oil costs, we don't want to experience those. My concerns, first of all, I would stand in a position that reflects the submission from Daniel that we don't have money. Well, we have money because it is said every country has money, and that's why they demonstrate by paying their debts. But the other issue that we should be mindful about is that every institution that gives money in terms of loan is interested in that interest so that you keep on paying. And that keeps us indebted. And now, colleagues from Parliament talked about how government does a very thorough assessment to find that we need loans. Today's meeting is standing on a key point of word, which is prudent fiscal management. And I want to highlight the word prudent. Uganda's national budget is now at 72.3 trillion. Parliament alone takes 1 point something trillion, about 1.03 trillion. If we take the narrative that 72 trillion is actually not there, the real money is actually 32 trillion, then that is almost close to 3 point something to 4% of that national budget. And I think that's where the worrying trend begins, because then that is something that is recurrent, keeps on coming and it keeps on being spent. And I think Parliament as an institution is one of the most successful branch of government where monies are always spent, and if needs be, then there's a supplementary. There are other sectors where spending actually don't go to 100%, and then money flows back to the consolidated fund. So I thought maybe we needed to reflect on that. And my second issue is the HMs, the agro-industrialization, tourism, minerals, and then science and technology and innovation, all that is having a budget allocation of about 2 point something, about 2.7. As opposed to, is just to be precise, I think is, yes, it's 2.7 trillion, as opposed to the 4.7 trillion targets. Now, how then are we going to be hopeful that the ATMs will actually move us from 50 billion US dollars to 500 billion US dollars? Remember, we only have 2 other strategic NDPs to implement. We are already implementing this 4th. Then we will have the next, the 5th and the 6th. And then we must have arrived there. With this kind of budget allocation, do you think we are going to actualize the ambitions in for what? The 10-fold growth strategy? That's my submission. And I think while my colleague, while the panelists from Parliament may have the chance to respond, we also are privileged to have an MP who is here with us, and we hope that will also form part of his speech.
Actually, we have been joined by another MP, and let me recognize the presence of Mukono District Woman MP, Honorable Anifa Nabukela. She's also from the Finance Planning and Economic Development Committee of Parliament. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's continue with another comment. There's somebody here. Please go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Very good. Mine was the gentleman in the room who is attempting to undo another gentleman who was the government of Saddam Hussein, Mr. Chemical Ali. He tried to talk about oral and failed issues of allocation of funding to agriculture by talking about the program-based planning and budgeting. And you gave an example that, for example, money for roads are usually budgeted for, and once that allocation is made in that sector, then it covers for agriculture. I think you are talking about central government, because actually when you go to where the actual agriculture happens, which is in the local government area, you will find that actually most of the Duka roads are in a very bad shape. So I think you need to reconsider your position from the submission you made. Submit. My name is Oscar Marco Tiller, and I work with our board.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Moderator. My name is Tamara Francis. This was to GMO. This was just talked about in the revenue mobilization. Now, I think most of our efforts are on revenue mobilization, but we are forgetting on the side of the taxpayer. Okay, we have strategies that are in place to enable these taxpayers, especially the small businesses, to generate more incomes. For instance, now, me, I'm a businessman, of course, small businesses, but we have new challenges that are discouraging our business growth. For instance, we have rent. Rent is taking away all our capital. Can we use tax as a tool to see how we can reduce the escalating rent costs in businesses? Okay. Now, like in Ibarra, you find someone has a small shop, but it's charging 1.5. Even the rent you pay is more than your capital. And the other issue is on the I think that the distribution channels are kind of disorganized. For instance, we have investors. Me, I deal in glasses. So I buy glasses from Chinese from industrial area. But the same Chinese, you find them cooking the glasses in Mbarara, Iwanga, Isinju. Can we use tax as a tool to reduce these effects? And then again, I think the other issue is to do with tax also. Some of us who are doing businesses, we face very serious challenges, especially under, for us who pay small tax. Oh, okay, we are under small, actually, it's called the presumptive tax system. The way we assess it is unfair. For instance, if you're doing glasses, okay, now that's that way. When I have 2 sheets of glasses, then you find URA is assessing you about 400,000. With the person who has over a container of glasses, is now, but you're paying the same tax because you are under small businesses. So I think there's a lot we have to do, especially when we are dealing with what we are calling the tax system. Otherwise, they are taking away our capital. When taxes are taking away our capital for us small businesses. Thank you so much.
Thank you. My name is Obed Achai. I'm a tax consultant and monitoring and evaluation specialist. The Christians in this house, in the room, I'm sure you know of a book called Lamentations in the Bible. I think the leaders of this country have made us. They have reduced us to lamenters. And that is why, Daniel, I want to refer to you as bad man, but I will just only refer to you as not a good man, in a good way. Because being clear to that extent is not something we're used to in this country. That reality is hard to take. That we are talking of a budget of 73 trillion, but you're actually telling us, guys, can you take your eyes away from 73 or 70 or whatever to something like 37? So we should actually be talking. Mr. Chigundu, we are talking about 32, not 70. 37 trillion. And that is what we are slicing. That is how small our cake is. My question to you, Madam Jane, and other civil society organizations in this room. We know how things work in this country. We are talking about the process station, I know what, and then I don't know what, then process go where, somewhere. But I think it is the other way around. We know that things that work in this country begin from up. Civil society organizations, have we tried to create an engagement with the president? With the president, still is there, and we are here. And we are speaking with all the anger, but in a calm way. I don't know how you can combine the two. But we're telling the truth because we are sure these things don't reach him. We know that people close to him have their own agenda. You know, when they reach him, they also have their issues to present. So some of these things, civil society organization, I am aware of some platforms, investors around the table, I don't know what, which table, I don't know what. Do we have any platform in this country where civil society organizations engage directly with the president, say that some of the things are aired out? Secondly, Madam Maureen, thank you so much. You talked about the informal sector and the women. If I was in charge of awarding medals, I would give those women who are doing business in our small towns and everywhere medals because they are our heroes. The informal sector remains large. What are we doing to reduce the size of the informal sector? Because, Mr. Daniel, now that this money is being used to pay data and everything, I think we need to collect more informal domestic revenue. Say that a big chunk of it is wasted, then we also remain with something reasonable to do some investment. Because there are certain things we cannot run away from. The way, Daniel, you are going to be frustrated forever. The ministers they are about to increase the number of cars. So that one is a standard. So can we do it the other way around? Let's collect more revenue. A big chunk is eaten and wasted, and then we remain some reasonable. Cost some investment. And one way to do that, in my view, is to increase ways of mobilizing more revenue by reducing the size of the informal sector and so that we can have more revenue. The last one is a bit of a comment. We have had cases in this country where Parliament, you members of Parliament, when you all turn up, the house is full, you have nowhere to sit, others sit on the some ways sit on other people's laps. Okay. I don't know which day, I don't know which age limit, I don't know what. Recently, the court martial. How come we have not had such attendance to some of these pressing things? How come we have not had you as Parliament lament about the failure to execute these projects in time? You Beach Express that started, I don't know when. So now we're still suffering with that jam. And then you are there, but when it is the age limit, everyone turns up. So, Mr. Chief Mundu, I have liked to understand. I talked to this one.
Yes.
But you also like your understanding of Uganda's budgeting process.
As you wind up.
Yes. Frustration. That we understand that you know these things, but some of these things don't translate into the economy that you want to feel. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
I'm Frederick Bongo from Tambara district. This goes to Mr. Kwago.
Please keep your comment or question short.
Yes, Mr. Kwago, what other financial repercussions are there with such projects as a consultant that are approved and not pick up almost 10 years? And how can this process be ended? Mr. Chikundu, with all our members of parliament who are here with your oversight and approval. Right now, as we talk, our debt burden is 106 trillion. According to Mr. Kwago's reality, we are looking at 32.3 trillion that we are going to be looking for. Ourselves as far as debt management is concerned, because each year it increases, and within the next maybe 2 or 3 years, we are going to be in 130. Thus, still our member
Where does the 100 million funds fall in the budget? And who approves this? Who oversees this? Because we have seen members of parliament giving out salary shillings to women.
Funds for the men.
So I don't know. Really help us to understand this. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, operator. My name is Lilian Senteza. I work with Transparency International in Uganda. I tend to have a thinking and a belief that government actually knows the problems that this country is facing. The only challenge comes in the big prioritization. Where do the priorities of the duty bearers, of the decision makers stand? That is a very important issue that we need to reflect on. And that gets me thinking that we all, of the duty bearers, pursue their selfish interests without minding about the people that they lead. I'll focus on the bit of the very many initiatives that have been made by governments towards alleviating poverty in this country. We've had several programs ranging from the Poverty Eradication Action Plan, the Youth Livelihood Programs, the NYOGA, and the like. And right now, what is on our mouth is the PPA. My question is, does government reflect on the challenges that all those programs have gone through before designing a new program that is aimed at alleviating poverty in this country? Does government seek to reflect? If it's done, I do believe you shouldn't be having some of these problems that we are facing currently in the implementation of the PPA. When it comes to the aspect of corruption, I would like to state that most of these programs have failed because of corruption. As we stand now as a country in the Corruption Perception Index, we are at a score of 26 out of 100. And we are still doing badly compared to other countries like Rwanda, Kenya, Tanzania. We need to do more as government. And I believe that once we reflect, once we sit and say we are putting things in action, we shall see progress in whatever we are doing. Research has been done, but it is not translating into what we need to see as the public. I submit.
Thank you so much. We really need to bring this to a close. 4 more people. Okay, very quickly, please keep your comments short.
Thank you so much, moderator, and the panelists, audience. We can't emphasize more, especially on the issue of corruption. And we all believe that we can't speak involvement when we have lots and lots of illicit financial leakages. From the IG report, and colleagues agree that we use over 10 trillion. So for someone who wants to understand it, this year we are investing only about 1 billion in financing or paying domestic areas, which domestic areas that we tune of about 13 trillion. So if you are to get all the 10 trillion you're losing to the cost of corruption and invest it in repaying areas, probably we'll be having a different conversation. But away from that, we are increasingly being worried about the elitism that is probably becoming the Judas Iscariot in this country. I think it's alarming that when you come at a time when you think resources are narrow, but then you're rewarding each member of parliament 100 million to go and consult. Yet there is actually a budget to consult. I think that shows that we are shooting ourselves in the foot. So there is a current increasing tendency of budgeting for corruption. And I think you saw that the previous year, we even had some members of parliament that were taken to prison. However, we come at a time that we haven't seen further action against those MPs. But we sit in the same forums, discuss the same issues as if it is business as usual. But beyond that, we also have increasing impunity. What does this speak
to our economy, where we have so many untouchables. These are all challenges we need to address if we want to see a focused development for this country. But also, I think lastly, as I bring this to conclusion, what are the recent President is to speak to the issues of corruption in URA, where he says we are intending to increase on technology and this and this. How are we ready to reduce on those illicit financial leakages in even our tax code? That even when we set a target of 32 trillion, then we shall be able to get that target. I think this year, as we come to the end, we are short by about 4 trillion of the target. So what happens in the next year? But also when we speak to intent, what's happening in the mining area? Because in our the 4 strategic sectors, agriculture, tourism, mining, and services. Mining is a core area. We have a lot of interest in it, but then we are realizing less revenues in that area with a lot of vacancies. So government agencies, civil society, and all the other stakeholders, what are we trying to do towards that area that then we can realize our potential beyond the rhetoric, beyond the lamentation? I think these are critical discussions beyond what everyone else has said that we need to address our minds to if you want to say Uganda that you want. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we have 3. Wow.
Thank you very much, moderator. My name is Kapo, but from Kabale, and neighbor to Rwanda, where my brother Daniel is in power. I want to, first of all, appreciate Seattle for convening us, and also to recommend that from here, our president seems to have set a layer of governance where it is very hard to reach him and tell him these hard questions. And his agents, I will say, continue to block us to make sure that we don't have these genuine conversations. And it's very unfortunate in this country. I think when my brother Honorable was talking about discussing with us and other members of parliament, I was like, yeah, he has made my day. Where you live in Kabale, Katuna and Katuna, Kabale, power is on and off. We depend. The other side is lighting throughout. This side, we are in darkness. Now what we do, we have started encroaching to go and enjoy light the other side and come back from darkness when it comes to that.
And most likely the power that you're seeing the other side is actually exported from this side.
No, that's all it's saying. The real dam that supplies power, it is from Honorable Wilfred Wagaba's constituents, Ndorwa East constituents. That's where it comes from. We don't benefit, it goes direct to Rwanda. Areas of Mujesera that border Kabale, Hara, and light. This side is darkness, the other side people are light in streets. Can you imagine? We are so much but when you people, our brothers are speaking a lot of English and saying budget is okay for one. Roads, little roads. Now you cannot access some of the communities. If someone dies, they carry him or her, a dead body on the other stretchers. And we are in such a country where you speak to us particularly, is this one of us or not? We, I think, I also wanted to talk about GROW program. Last week, Minister of Gender was convening some of the retreats go and sensitize women, including the cover and candidate. When they started talking about that in the audience, women were almost crying. They didn't know that there is such money. Even requirements that are needed to access such a money. Oh my God, our country, I think, I wanted to know from Honorable Member of Parliament, where you represent some members of Parliament, where you represent. So women access this money of GROW. Or you also hear it in your own English, your own English. Make members of Parliament access. When we are speaking, we are not, with due respect, we are not disrespecting your guests, but we are speaking genuinely that we are hurt. And maybe my last point is concerning rationalization that was done. For sure, an example of union and use of works.
a road that starts from Wakabale town, that connects up to Punjiri, that connects up to Kasisi. It is impossible. There is no work going on. And in the communities, when you are talking to people and you're saying, there's PDA, there's this, that, people don't understand this. As a parliament, if I can pose a question, what are you doing in our parliament? Thank you very much.
All right, there are two more comments.
Yes.
Oh,
My name is Ali Twaha, and I work with New Vision. Just a quick disclaimer, my views do not represent the views of my employer. Just a quick one, we are concerned about debt, and a bigger percentage of our budget are going into those big ticket projects, the roads. You talked about the issue on delayed projects, one of the panels, especially on the Ginger Expressway. Now, one of the issues that is delaying that road is the issue of compensation. We find that government, actually people, landowners hold government at ransom. If you don't pay, nothing happens. So how, just to get your views on how government should deal with the issue of claimants
all right.
or landowners when it comes to compensation.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you so much. My name is Julius Sarubu. I come from Soroti. And I want to talk about something to do with climate change. For us in Soroti now, as we talk, we got a new variety. At the Teso sub-region, we got a new variety of cassava that lasts for 9 months and it starts rotting. And what that means, every year you have to plant cassava. And if you don't plant cassava, you are going to be affected by famine. And we are not certain of the rains because you have seen the trends of rains in the Teso sub-region. So it's one of my concerns. Secondly, Mr. Suleiman talked about coordination. Let me bring to your attention. There is a multi-billion project in Serere that has been destroyed by wind. That is just lying there. And when you ask the district officials, they say it directly comes from the central government. So they are not aware of it. Maybe I need to bring to your attention. Madam Mori, you talked about taking the handhold somewhere. I think you don't come from the village. If you mention that thing in the community, they will chase you. It is one of the things they are using for survival. So I want to remind you. And then finally, when you talked about agriculture, for us in the Teso sub-region, what we are producing is oranges. And for you now to sell an orange, a huge bag at 25,000. Where do you get the people who buy it? From Kenya. So I think when we are talking, we need to reflect the poor man in the village, just like Madam Gian said. The economy is not about the figures, how you really talk about the money. The real person in the village, how does he get the money? Last time we saw URI asking for the budget for medical, but the taxpayer in the village has no money and has nothing. When you go to the facility, you only get the doctors, those days to assess you and tell you, go to the clinic. So I think we need to have the conversation go down. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Chigunga, back to you.
Oh.
We realize that the national budget, especially in Uganda, is more or less a political document. It's a political tool.
Everywhere.
And from your discussion, I didn't hear you really try to embrace the political dynamics within the budget. There is always an alternative budget from the opposition in parliament. I never heard you say anything that there are some ideas that people from the alternative budget. Like last year, there was this one. There was that alternative budget from the opposition with some good proposals in it. But from your discussion, you didn't pick anything from that alternative budget, which I think something. Those proposals, yeah. But also, we need also to focus on the expenditure. We only talk about the DRA, domestic resource mobilization, but we don't look at expenditure side.
I believe there are some wasteful expenditures that we need to do away with. For instance, those donations, the long queues. For instance, the president has a very long queue of RDCs. Like in Kampala, they are 5. Some really do not have any work. There is an ambassador who was appointed and did have permission to really visit.
All right.
All those like wasteful expenditures. But also, lastly, the East African community. We should make use of the East African community. How does our budget speak to the East African community? For instance, we need to expedite the East African protocol to have free movement of labor and services so that you can have people work freely in Kenya, Kenyans can work in Uganda. I recall we had a challenge with Martha Karua, she didn't practice here in Uganda. So if we can have labor freely cross borders, I believe we can increase our resources. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. The last contributor.
Yeah, thank you so much, moderator, the members of the panel, and colleagues. My name is Dr. Ben Otawa Adol. I work for Amara Research and Development, ARID. ARID is a member of the Party Justice Alliance. First of all, thank you for organizing this. And it's also interesting that the voice from the local government, the South should also be heard. And thank you, my colleague, Julius Lobo, from Sorotia. Our colleagues, when we talk about master budget, the biggest question that we need to ask is, every year that the budget is passed, what does that mean to the common man, to the local person, in the villages, in the rural areas? Every time we draw the budget, the local person in the village expects to see better roads, expect to see when they go to the hospital, their drugs, schools that are undergoing construction get completed and teachers are recruited, and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, colleagues, it's almost business as usual. I come from Agago district, just like my colleague from Kabale also gave his experience. We have roads that are marked under central government that are not passing. But here, last week we had our head of state talk about the inevitability of Uganda now being second middle income economy. But if you look at roads in Agago district, in Pale district, they are impassive, especially central government roads. We call them central government roads. They are impassive. Roads in a hospital. I was once involved in an emergency. I was in Gulu. When I was coming back in the evening, I found a neighbor, a school, and a child in the school was stabbed by a colleague when they had a scuffle, because the colleague was dismissed from the school 2 weeks earlier, and then he returned with other colleagues to stay from the school. So only one askari was there. So in the scuffle, the askari was stabbed. So my car was involved in emergency. I took to Gulu Regional Referral Hospital around 11. So we waited for 2 hours. First of all, they asked us to go and buy excess book, some notebook for recording the details. Secondly, they didn't have gloves, so we needed to run around the pharmacy in town to buy. And then they were recording the history for 2 hours. I saw how the blood was done. Then I made it. Then let's go to Lacho. From Lacho, we were taken. That was around 3 a.m. By 5 a.m. in the morning, operation was completed. And the man was rescued. So, lack of facilities, even the regional referral hospital, it's a big issue. This is just one practical example. So, in as far as local government is concerned, and service delivery at some national level is concerned, colleagues, we are saying it's alarming. Okay, this year's budget, we are saying the local government budget allocation as a sector has increased from 2.25 to 2.5%. And we are asked to celebrate. Perhaps this increment is also due to PDM and maybe other operational cooperation. But those alone also have problems on it. When you go to the villages, to those sub-counties and parishes, and you see what's actually being done here and OWC, not least to even mention that it really doesn't seem to be creating impact on the citizen, but appeasing those who support, the power that be. These days, actually, it is members of parliament distributing seats. Why? We have production departments. What are they doing? Why do we give our MPs to be the one to produce the seats, to distribute the seats? Those citizen maize and so on. They're not distributing. And at the end of the day, we see this outrage. So why do we prioritize service delivery and make it political? So this is the problem. So I would like to appeal to government that local government being the biggest service delivery point, let us increase budget allocation there. 2.5 should not be celebrated. 2.5% should not be celebrated, in my view. Lastly, can we maneuver a mechanism of strengthening local government to even do procurement by themselves? We have 6 secondary schools in all our districts, but who are those ones building those schools? In my district, about 3 are sold in the last 2 financial years. And you know what? The district cannot say anything about it. They can only monitor and report. There are companies back in the country who are doing this. So when we're saying education sector, there is improvement, there is improvement. But a secondary school as secondary financial years, it is not even at moving level. Because the local government, the district authority cannot do anything about it. Because their work has been done from the center. So these are some of the issues that I thought I should point out. So as members of Subnational, the Tax Justice Alliance, we still feel there's a lot that needs to be done on issue of revenue, more or less on money. There's a big gap there. There's a very big gap. People still do not associate the tax they pay with the services they get. That's still a big gap. So that's what I thought I should do. And I would like to ask my members of parliament, how can we empower the local government? Because local government is the largest service we require. So that they can deliver more. Institutions are weak. When you go to recruitment, that's a whole game story. We have had how service commissions are getting money from potential employees, clients, in order to get recruited. Recently, in one of the districts, it took the intervention of the Public Service Commission to go and do the recruitment by themselves. These are all problems. We are talking about corruption. So, colleagues, whereas we should celebrate that as a country, economic growth rate is moving to, is projected at 7%. Practically on the ground, you don't see it. Our districts, especially myself, sub-region, Northern Uganda, is still actually doing very, very. The biggest problem is our leaders. They don't want the institutions to function. They want to be the ones, and members of parliament, I'm sorry to say, they want to gag on everything so that it is me who is doing it, completely destroying, the power of the institutions at the local level.
As you wind up.
So I would like to end there, colleagues, and thank you for listening to me. And I thank you for really organizing this. I look forward to more such engagement. But please, let us also get a lot more from the subnationals to come so that in that panel, somebody from the local government, somebody from the city authority should also be there so that we at least try to diversify the dialogue.
All right. Thank you so much. Now let's get back to the panel for responses, and I want to begin with you, Maureen.
Thank you very
Maybe
much.
even before you responded, somebody who sent in a note and was concerned about lack of funding in early childhood development program under the Ministry of Education and Sports. He says, while government is investing in the other areas of education, it has neglected the early childhood development program, and you think it's not a wise decision. Let's hear from you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Kenneth. Yes, I think I'll go straight to what Julius was sharing in regards to retiring the hand hoe. Please don't beat me. It's not me who delivered that message. That message came from the rural women farmers, actually. That's where it came from. But the whole essence is for us to understand, what does it mean when we say retiring the hand hoe? We know that this is the hoe that we use. That is true. But is it still sustainable for us to move forward with what we are talking about, building Uganda, moving it to the, to the money economy? Is this still worth it? What is your role? You remember when I started, I said, what is your role in all this that we are talking about? We are talking about government has programs where they are doing, where they provide irrigation under the Ministry of Agriculture, but how many people know about it? So what are you doing to deliver this message to the rural woman farmer, the last mile woman, about these programs that are within the government? But again, when we talk about retiring the hand hoe, we are looking at the bigger picture. What is out there that is working currently that we can adopt as Uganda to ensure that we move? Because we are not moving. And then my general overview in regards to this conversation that we are having today is that, can we go back and dissect the budget to ensure that the last mile person understands what's in the budget? Because like most of you have already highlighted, that is in English. Most people don't understand English. What you're talking about, you're talking about GDPs, whatever. People don't understand them. So how best can we make it tangible for the last mile person to understand it better? That I can be able to stand up and defend or demand. Because I cannot demand what I don't understand. So for me, what I'm taking from here is that let's go back, dissect, and bring it closer to the last mile person, but also get their engagement, and each of us get our exact activities that we can do to ensure that we make our people better, but ourselves better as well. Because my colleague has already highlighted, there is no money. Yeah, so we should look for the money. And that money has to come from me and you. Thank you very much.
But let's hear from Mr. Chigundu from Parliament.
Thank you very much. A lot have been said, but I'm going to restrict my responses to technical issues that are within my paycheck. The rest of the questions are for other responsibility centers. One of the things I want to maybe bring to attention to this audience, that Parliament does quite a lot of work in terms of policy legislation and even oversight, including budget approval. For example, I've heard about climate change. I don't know that people here are aware that there's a climate act that enshrines all agencies of government, all MDA, uh, to have climate change compliance. And that assessment, the law mandates, I think, the Ministry of Water and Environment to do that. For us, when we receive the policy statements, the budgets, we demand for that certificate of compliance. Now, about the methodology of how the assessment is done is the responsibility of you people who are climate change experts. I'm not a climate change expert. I don't know. But for me, what I know, I add it to compliance of the budget to climate change. If the ministry says the same goes to gender certificates and gender equity, if the ministry brings a certificate that we have audited the budget, we have found out that it's gender equity compliant, for us, our role is to ensure that there is a certificate. Now, for you as actors, what's your role in ensuring that climate resilience, mitigation, all those terms you use are translated into the budgets for each of the sectors, so that you begin to demand accountability from Parliament. But because, as we have already said, that our budget is participatory, it's very open, and where every player is given an opportunity at any one time in the processes. So we should all try to do our work in terms of informing, for example, the ministry if there is any gaps in terms of how they assess climate change financing, then bring it to their attention as key players. Then the other issue is about the budget being a political tool. It's not only in Uganda, all over the world. The budget is a political tool. And for your information, if you didn't know, the president, according to Article 155, is the Minister of Finance. The article says the president shall be caused to be laid to parliament the budget for a financial year. So what the Minister of Finance does is a delegated function. So I like one who said that it may be, as for SATE, you need to have an engagement with the Minister of Finance, with the President, to bring all this to your attention, because is the chief executive, and therefore the budget is his. According to the Constitution, Article 93, Parliament cannot alter, cannot increase the budget, it cannot recommend by way of decrease, but not by increment. So the whole rush about Parliament has not allocated is, I think, a misdirected question. Parliament, what Parliament can do is to advise government on how to do allocative efficiency, but not to allocate money itself. So that's why this is, according to the Minister of Finance, a month for the budget. This is the first. The budget is Thursday. There'll be a whole month. So many, whatever. I like the person who said, let it be translated into simple languages. Make the budget breakable into facts. Because for me, the facts I have here over the budget we approved is very different from what I hear from this audience, especially about except with the total figure of 70.3, but the rest, how much is coming from taxes, discussion budget, how much are we borrowing? All the facts I've had here are different from the budget I have, which Parliament passed. So now, my appeal to you colleagues, get the facts very clearly, the information, how much money has been allocated, so that we begin demanding for accountability, we begin demanding for more based on what we have. For example, we have talked about the contingency fund. There was a provision in the PFM about 3.5%, which was amended to 0.5%, and that money is always there. Parliament ensures that money is budgeted for. It may not be enough to cater for all climate mitigation issues and disasters, but the money is at least. Parliament ensures that the money is in the budget. Whether it is utilized for contingencies, then that's not that's an issue for demanding accountability from the budget implementers. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Let's hear from Daniel.
Thank you very much for the comments. I have a very few, but I wanted to Mr. Obed, I think he has gone, but I think the lamentation is not in futility, because the time I've been in this engagement on this process, I remember early 2000s when we were doing budget work, there were very few organizations, I think only one, Uganda'S Network, where I was working, and we used to be invited for public expenditure review meeting, and we give in 1 hour, sometimes it's 3 minutes or half. Because of delays, we give you 10 minutes to say something and you go. That was the end. But of course, we advocated for spaces through CS Burger, and now I see more openness from government to engage throughout the process, which never used to happen, by the way. This is a real a step in the right direction. And I also believe that with our lamentation and talking, we shall also look at the other side of the spending side, that we see more engagement on the spending side. Actually, the work we did previously made sure that government, that time, PSST, who has said all government institutions have to display releases, especially for primary sales centers and public notebooks. I don't know whether they are still doing it, but that was the directive of the ministry. Because of the work we did, unearthing a lot of challenges we had in the way money was spent. Actually, we influenced the decision of government to start sending money direct to the school account rather than through the district account. So those things didn't come out of no talking in terms of lamentation. But of course, our side, the civil side, is to make a noise. There's nothing you're not going to implement the budget. You just want to show where the weaknesses are. As members have said, let's go understand the budget. Good thing now it is on a website, budget website. You can go and download all the documents are there, and then you can see what are the facts. What are the facts? What you don't talk from, as Mr. Chikunda said, without knowing facts. But of course, there's a comment I wanted to make on Mr. Obeda on informality. I think actually what's happened, there is a recent trend which I've seen that I think anecdotal evidence shows that informality is increasing in Uganda. The last status we had was 54% business was informal, but I think the next survey will show us that it will increase 60. Because the reason why informality is increasing is because formalization is now becoming a problem to the formalizers. Why should I formalize? To be harassed by URA with a very rude email in capital letters demanding for, I don't know, you have just registered, the next day you are sending an email in capital letters asking, can you please file your tax returns? If I registered in May this year, they are going to send you an email this month, income return, and they put in red or capital letters. Really, a month in business and you're asking for returns. So people set to stay away. Even a local government, when you go formal, let me give an example. I went to approve some small plan for my structure, semi-structure. My dear, the way they frustrated me, I said, they told me point blank that if you want to go formal, go to that website, Simani called Uganda, where they approve plans, get a NEMA certificate, get Simani what, AOC chairman, get a surveyor report, you put in the system, we shall look at your structure. It's a semi-structure. Why should I go through NEMA, environmental assessment, what said? Said, but if you want to go formal, you go that way. But for us, we have our system behind. We can help. Of course, I said, now why should I suffer with the NEMA, with surveyor? I don't know where to see. Well, I said, okay. Yeah. So now the business is moving. So I cooperated informal because they forced me to go informal. So the system is not helping us to informalize. And that's the facts on the ground. But just so government, I think, as the stakeholders here, we need to think about how do we help people to formalize, where the system is actually forcing you to informalize. The issue of compensation, my colleague from, okay, let's start with the repercussion of non-implementation of projects. Of course, repercussions are very clear. For most of the underfunded projects, if, of course, the first thing you pay the first one when you sign a loan, you first start paying the management fees. There are penalties for non-payment of not implementing. Of course, at the worst, they will cancel the projects. There are so many projects that have been cancelled by so many donors. Even last 2 years ago, I think there's a project was supposed to do Malabatoro, that project funded by 2 million was cancelled because of non-implementation. There are so many projects which are cancelled. If you go and search properly, you'll find a lot of projects being cancelled.
All right.
So it's not a very unique thing. On the issue of compensation, the challenge we have in compensation is not really that people don't want to compensation. It is the uniformity. And I think we have seen it in this project of the Greater Kampala Metro Area Project, the World Bank funded. People are willing to give without compensation, and it's working. And I've not seen any problem. Of course, small minorities, but generally, like where I stand here, people have given up, and they are willing for development to take place. What causes the problem is in a lack of a clear policy from government on what it means. Because let me give an example. The Chirama to Kasangat project is being compensated. The one which goes from Chira to Buluwindo is not being compensated. So people are asking why. There are two projects. How come one is compensated, one is not compensated? So we have to get a policy where there is uniformity in compensation. And because of advice selection, some people have more knowledge than others. They know that project is going to pass here. I put there my small house very fast. Before you know it, I say I want this money. Other people don't know, so they don't do anything. So for you get a higher compensation than the other neighbor. Because of just, even someone even is put there a temporary malaro, graveyard, temporary just to get compensation. So people have no knowledge, but government putting in place a clear policy on compensation, where they say we shall not compensate anyone for development projects of this nature in these areas. And everyone knows it. I think it will help a lot. I think those are my last one on the comment on the Dr. Deep. I'm not here, I can't comment on that project because I'm not authorized and I don't know a lot of information on what's happening. What I will request to my brother, continue with ensure there is a complaint mechanism in the World Bank, which you know. Please continue sending your complaints to the relevant authority. They will act. You continue, share that information with the OPM, the implementer, and also the World Bank computer system. I don't have any response on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Stephen?
Yeah, thank you so much. I think we all know the problem. We've been discussing, lamenting. Obed said we are lamenting, but the lamentation has actually made the CSOs to reach this place. So I think we need to continue lamenting. Ben from the local government has really brought out a lot of issues. And now we are saying there's not much money. So where is the priority? So my takeaway is that we need to have this kind of conversation. Even within the local government, more of these conversations need to go out there and people need to have this talking so that we can prioritize well. What should come first? Should the roads, the feeder roads come first, or should the SGR? I think through discussions we'll know which one to pick first and which one actually yields more benefit to the common person. So what I want is that let these conversations continue, even within the local government, as it keeps coming up to the central government. Let's have more of these discussions and also simplify the budget. I'm happy that Siatin is doing some part of it, but like I'll give Obed or Ben from the local government. Can you go back? Can you, even however small it is, you can pick the budget and then try to explain it within the local government. I think that would go a long way. Thank you.
Aloysius?
Thank you very much. I want to concur with Ben. And actually, we were engaging some of the government officials, and someone was saying that maybe the challenge we have currently is the commodification of our essential social services like health, education. And someone was saying that according to the statistics we have, how many Ugandans are poor who cannot even earn $1 a day? And someone was saying that I took my kid to one of the government hospitals and I was asked to pay consultation fee. Do I have a contract with God to know when I'm going to fall sick so that I can prepare that? So that is the role of the states. And we think and we should call for the government to ensure that some of the social essential services are not commodified, regardless of the capitalist economy. I wanted to revisit that and see if we can qualify the aspect of deviation. On if we can quantify the amount of revenue or the amount of money we are losing under corruption, I think we can recover that money. Because the challenge we have, illicit financial flows cannot be felt. You cannot touch, you cannot see even where they pass. So if we can have a quantification and having the data in place, I think we will be in one way or the other able to restore that money or bring it into the taxable net, or even claim it back. On informality, me I want to, in one way or the other, Kwaku was trying to say that, okay, there is that bigger point of view. You see, most of the time people say Uganda's sector is informal to a large extent. Yes, but to some extent it is not informal. It is lack of collaboration between the Uganda Revenue Authority and the local government. And the other informality of the difficult to comply is there. Because I'm going to try to show you. Someone was talking about the presumptive tax. Recently, government was saying that they have put it clearly. Those who have the books of accounts are going to pay this amount of money. Those who don't have, they are going to pay that particular amount of money. It is clear. And so, how can URA engage local government? Let me tell you, no one can operate within Kampala city without a certificate, a trading license. It can't be. It can't be. And they have been under the ILAS. They've been attaching it to a trading license. So can we first collect what we can? And we cannot push everyone into paying presumptive tax as per the law provide. I'm coming to the aspect of poor assessment. That's where the problem might be. Because if you know that for someone to pay presumptive tax, you're supposed to be between 10 million and 150 million. So it means that that person can pay, which is okay. But have you assessed that person? Or it is just a presumptive tax which you're supposed to pay based on having books of account, or you don't have? Secondly, when you go down here, just look at Nakasero, with a stall, a visible stall, or without a visible stall, when someone has something there, that person is paying and he receives a receipt. How formal would you love that person to formalize to be able to be taxed? Or we have failed to recognize the decentralization policy and the non-tax revenues that are collected from those people, because the presumptive regime gives you a threshold. So to me, we just need to look at how can we define informality beyond having a tin, because even when you have a tin without a taxable income, you are not supposed to pay. So to me, I think we just need to look into that and ensure that we really get to know who is not paying and who is supposed to pay our taxes in one way or the other, so that we can, I concur with the people who are saying that we need to see how can we make the informal sector move upward, to move out of the informality, because it is critical, because you'll be in position to generate revenue from them and be able to give them an opportunity to grow. And I welcome the startup incentive, which is okay, but at the end of the day, we need to ensure that they are supported for us to be able to generate revenue from them, but also facilitate their growth in one way or the other. Last one, someone was saying that I think it is a debate which we have under local governments, maybe the trading license, because this one is different from presumptive tax and trading license, where they say that is supposed to create trade order, but also even giving you the authority to do business in that particular area. But it is on the name of the business you are doing, regardless of the stock in the in the store. Because if you are running, for instance, a boutique, regardless of how much you have, the issue is it a boutique? So you are supposed to pay this amount of money. Is that fairness? That's where maybe we need to critique the current provisions when it comes to that concept. To me, I think I concur with you, but I want also to say this one. And I don't want to act like someone who is supporting the government in one way or the other. The Constitution says that, I think that is Article 29, which states that the citizen should participate in gainful economic activity. And the moment you participate in the gainful economic activity, you're supposed to pay taxes. And government doesn't have its own buildings. They privatized. You are working within someone's premises. You're supposed to pay for rental. You understand?
Finally,
so it means that the moment maybe we need to try to ask the Chamber of Commerce, the private sector, to create capacity building and awareness creation when it comes to doing businesses. You find someone has started a business, he paid a lot of money on renting, but when you look at the things within the store, you can be surprised. They are less than what he or she is selling. So to me, I think the fact that we are doing business in the private sector led, the problem of rent is a challenge, and we need to appreciate it. And it is something which we need to understand. Do you have the ability? I'm sorry to use this platform to say it, but do you have the ability to operate on that street? Because that is the amount of money you're charging. The government cannot do anything. But when it comes to the taxes, for instance, the presumptive tax, someone can tell you how many days are in a year. Can you divide those ones? But they are going to tell you that. Can you divide those ones with what you're supposed to pay? And surprisingly, you might find that you're supposed to pay around 500 shillings per day. Can't you collect that one and put it into a pool and say, that one is for paying presumptive tax? We have a challenge. I concur. The only solution, the only resource the government can generate sustainably is tax. But how do you use the tax to ensure that the services are provided to the people is the thing which we need to put into consideration. Lastly, this platform is part of the national budget framework, the national budget transparency initiative, where we are supposed to debate, create awareness
on the opportunities and issues for consideration which the government has considered for under the national budget the national budget. So it is one of the platform, and others are ongoing, and others are supposed to be at the subnational level. So this is one of the activities which were considered by the Minister of Finance to be held among the National Budget Transparency Initiative partners. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's give a round of applause to the panelists. They have held the fort for the last 2 hours or so. Thank you so much for listening in, but also responding to the issues that have been raised by the audience. And I hope everybody is satisfied with the responses that have been given. We also hope that the discussions that we have had here will go a long way to enrich the decisions that will be made probably in the future, because now this particular budget, I would say, is gone. Done and dusted. We just wait for the speech and listening, and then probably the recommendations that have been made here will be useful as we begin the next budget cycle. May I now take this opportunity to invite Mr. Herbert Kafero from Siatini, Uganda. Panelists, you can now resume your seats. A round of applause as they go to sit. Mr. Herbert Kafero from Siatini will lead us in the next segment of this event.
Thank you so much, moderator, Mr. Kenneth Lukwago, for that very great work you've done for steering the discussions. A round of applause for him. Indeed, the work speaks for itself because he's engaged the panel like he was coached to do so. But that's all his brilliance, and we thank him for that. My name is Herbert Kafero. I work with Siatini as the Programs and Communications Manager. I'm going to give a vote of thanks, but before I do so, I would like to recognize the presence of 2 members of Parliament, Honorable Hanifa Nabukera and Honorable Kakembo. Thank you so much for honoring our invitation. We truly appreciate. We are speaking policy matters, and it would be a misguided conversation if we didn't have members of Parliament, because they have a legislative function that they do. But also, I'd like to emphasize that this high-level policy dialogue on the state of the economy is part of the National Budget Month activities. And so we're engaging on the National Budget Month. And before the National Budget Month, we had the process on the tax bills. And as the Tax Justice Alliance Uganda, we input into the tax bills. We developed alternative civil society organizations, tax proposals, which we presented to the Parliamentary Committee on Finance, and which we submitted to the Ministry of Finance for consideration. And some of the positions that were considered were positions for the Tax Justice Alliance Uganda. And the alliance, the Tax Justice Alliance Uganda, is a loose coalition of civil society organizations that advocate for transparent and equitable tax systems in Uganda. And I will not dwell so much on what we do, the nitty-gritties of our work, but some of the members of the alliance are here. Some of the members actually coming from up country. We have Dr. Benson, we have Comrade Julius Arugu, among other members. And so this has been a very, very timely discussion, not only a Kampala affair, but a national conversation. I would like to quickly highlight a few issues that came out before I give a vote of thanks. One of the issues that came out is the limited fiscal space, and that was emphasized, and it's linked to the debt, the increased borrowing, because when you borrow more, you are trapped and entrapped. So the limited fiscal space actually constrains a lot of things, and I will not delve into that. But also the other issue that came out is the issue and the concern around public debt and transparency. There are issues that the panelists raised around commitment fees, that when we contract a debt, when we borrow, commitment fees start being applied. And so whereas we look at what we've borrowed, and we lose sight of the commitment fees, they multiply, and we have to keep paying all that. So there is quite a lot that we have to interrogate, the dynamics of debt. And we cannot treat every debt as a one size fits all, but rather look at a particular loan that has been acquired. What are the conditionalities? What are the flexibilities? Are we paying? And what are we foregoing to meet that? But also the issue of only borrowing for ready projects. I think that came out loud and clear, that we are even borrowing before we do valuation, we compensate. And so we are tied up into meeting debt obligations, paying commitment fees, interest, and all that, but the projects haven't yet kicked off. One project was already mentioned here. I'll not overemphasize. The other issue that came out is the pressing need to shift from simply increasing infrastructure spending, from simply increasing spending on infrastructure, to ensuring value for money through strong public investment systems and accountability frameworks. That came out loud and clear. But also the other issue that came out is leveraging regional integration, the East African Community regional integration. The way we operate sometimes as a country, as Uganda, we operate like we are an island that can do things that are not linked to regional and global processes. And we've seen it, that there are tariffs that the US has put to work. So it means global trade landscape has a number of challenges. But if we do all it takes to make EAC regional integration work, it means the EAC regional integration will consume some of our products that cannot be consumed globally. Like, for example, plastics. You can't sell plastics to the US, but you can sell to DRC, among other countries. But also the other issue is the EAC is a launching pad for continental trade and global trade. So if the EAC works, and for all countries and all stakeholders, it means we will be better positioned to trade globally and continentally. The other issue that came out is the need to operationalize the national public investment management policy. And this requires stronger political will, institutional coordination, and performance-based budgeting to effectively implement and deliver the 10-fold agenda. The other issue that came out is the increasing apathy among taxpayers. Because if taxpayers are not seeing the real value for money, of course, there will be apathy, and the issues around the plight of MSMEs, they seem to be on their own. And there are a number of issues and things that need to be addressed in order to make the tax system work for MSMEs, to be clearly speaking to the challenges they face, but also cushioning them from different shocks and stresses. So this conversation was not just an opportunity for us to reflect, but it was intentionally created as a platform to deliberate on our economic realities and various development imperatives. And that is very important and urgent. And also, this platform is also part of the National Budget Month engagements, which is also called the Budget Transparency Initiative. And I would like to give a vote of thanks on behalf of all the National Budget Month partners, on behalf of CIATINI, the convening organization, for this inaugural State of the Economy dialogue, high-level policy dialogue. It's inaugural because it's the first. We've never had such a dialogue where we deliberate on economic imperatives, economic realities. It's the first, and I hope we can carry it forward. But also, I would like to emphasize that issues that have come up, such as fiscal space, the limited fiscal space, the other external challenges that are emerging, climate shocks, the urgent need for prudent public investments, all need to be interrogated further. And so this conversation needs to continue. We cannot stop here. And I would like to once again thank you all, distinguished stakeholders and participants, for making time for this timely conversation. And from CIATINI, we can only say thank you and thank you. Let's continue the debate. And lunch is upon us. The coupons have already been distributed. We have some logistical announcements. We will provide a modest facilitation because we recognize that there was a lot of jam and your cars consumed a lot of fuel. We cannot take that lightly. We have to compensate. So treat the modest facilitation as compensation for the fuel that was burnt in traffic jam. Thank you so much. I have been reminded, I'm sorry to come back, but